And now we want to pass it to Gabriel. They're in Bogotá, Colombia for day 2, part 2 of No War 2024.
Vale, muchísimas gracias, Rachel.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the second day and part 2 of No War that we have organized here in Bogotá. Welcome to all of those that are connecting through Zoom. We want to remind you that we actually started this conference yesterday with the first part that took place in Australia. And the name is Resisting the U.S. Military's Empire. That is talking much, its focus is talking about the U.S. military bases. And we have many people from different organizations joining us today here in Colombia, people that have been working with us always, working towards peace and against war. This conference, No to War, is a conference that has the participation of more than 500 people that have registered to participate throughout 47 different countries. And it's made up of 49 different organizations that are supporting and endorsing this year. We have a wish to create it much bigger and a much broader conference. And that is why we started in Australia. And that's why we wanted to also invite people from all from around the globe. Today, we have it here in Bogotá, and tomorrow we're going to end in Washington. We have different panelists that have decided that they're going to take this space because they believe in this world beyond war. It's a movement, it's a global movement that started from the perspective and the interest of abolishing war. It started as an institution, and what we wanted to do was to construct a world of peace, of solidarity, and of social justice. It's been now 10 years now of our movement. So in October, we're going to be celebrating our 10 years since many activists, including our executive director, David Swanson, decided to construct and create this incredible movement. And along the years, many activists have joined throughout or from around different continents, and our movement continues to grow, weaving ties between different organizations. Many of them will be talking and they will be represented here today, and we're very thankful that they are part of this endeavor. From here, we're going to be talking about the foreign military bases, not only about the bases that are in Africa or in the Middle East, but we're going to be focusing on the military bases that are here in Latin America that threaten sovereignty of the peoples. It also destabilizes the region, even though it might be said that they are supposed to provide security. The reality is different. The military bases are a threat to our stability, to our peace all around our continent. We are in a country in the heart. We are in a country where there are 7 military bases. At least that is what we know of. There could be much more because some of them are perhaps done in secret, but we at least know that the ones that those 7 that were mentioned before are used to destabilize the internal processes of any kind of movements or any political movements, not only from Colombia, but also from the neighboring countries. So today, as we talk about the military bases, is something that is very relevant in our continent. We've seen the decisions of Milei to allow military bases. Just a few days ago, the declaration from the Ecuadorian president, Daniel Noboa, said that he wants to install a military base in Ecuador, specifically through the modification of the constitution, and establish a military base in the Galapagos Island. So this is very relevant today, and that is why we made this call out for all of the different organizations to participate, to be here, be it in presence or physically or virtually, because we need to denounce that. We need to denounce this. We need to highlight that this is going on, because this is creating a bigger problem, the problem of militarization of all of Latin America. We have been working on a campaign, and we've been talking about the South Command. And so all of this is very relevant with what we've been working on since the beginning. So thank you to everyone for being here. We hope that you enjoy hearing from all our different panelists. We're going to have two sessions, the first part of the session that is going to have many voices. And we have some of them that are already here. Some of them are in the audience. And then we're going to take a small break, and then we're going to continue with our second part. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Tata Mendoza, who is an artist from Bogotá. And today she is going to share her music. And again, a warm welcome to everyone. Welcome to No War 2024, Resisting the U.S.'s Military Empire. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you, Gabriel, for inviting me. I'm so happy to be here, to be able to share my songs with you. As an artist, whenever we write music as artists, it's an extension of us. So there's some music that we write that are for celebrating other music. We write to remember. And then there's other types of songs that allow us to think of different people. And through song, we can remember them because we carry them in our memory, in our heart. This song is called Flight.
Volará, volará sin prisa ya, que las golondrinas vistan colores de fiesta, tirando al sol que marchará, retratando paisajes te quedará, retratando paisajes te quedará. Waru, 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 baba. Waru, 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 baba. Waru, 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 baba. Waru, 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 baba. Volará, volará sin prisa ya. Que las golondrinas vistan colores de fiesta, mirando al sol te marcharás, retratando paisajes te quedarás, retratando paisajes te quedarás. Pasan los días, pasan las horas, el cuerpo llama, mi alma se agobia. De algarabía, mi cuerpo llama, no es bulería. Yo quiero un grito de algarabía, mi cuerpo llama, no es bulería. Volará. Volará, volará sin prisa ya. Y las golondrinas vistan colores de fiesta. Mirando al sol te marcharás. Retratando paisajes te quedarás. Retratando paisajes te quedarás. El silencio llama, la vida se apaga, se abren las alas y a volar. Se abren las memorias, se cuentan historias y a rodar y a volar y a rodar. y a volar. Volará, volará sin prisa ya. Bueno, como les decía, para aquellos que ya no están, pero
That song was for those that are no longer with us,
de la memoria,
but it's a song that allows us to remember them, to keep them in our memory and in our heart.
nosotros como Latinoamérica somos un
As
pueblo
Latin
que
American people,
hay
we
una
are a
canción
peoples that have suffered a lot.
que dice que se llama Somos Latinos.
There's a song that I wrote that is called Somos Latinos. We are Latin Americans.
Acostumbramos a normalizar cosas que
Sometimes we normalize things that shouldn't be normalized, and that's why I wrote this song. We are Latinos.
En el pueblo del olvido, donde abunda el desaparecido. Millones de voces son silenciadas y bajo tierra no dicen nada. ¿Y ahora qué pasa? Solo pasa. Me duele el alma, solo canta. ¿Y ahora qué pasa? Solo pasa. Me duele el alma, solo canta. Somos latinos, esta es la voz. Mira lo que pasa, escucha el dolor. Somos latinos, esta es la voz. Mira lo que pasa y escucha el dolor. Wait, en el pueblo resistimos los corruptos, todos sus hijos. La vida aguante, perseverante, corazón arrugado, sonrisa pujante. Y ahora se callan las buenas palabras. Me duele el alma, solo cantar. Solo cantar. Somos latinos, hasta el amor. Mira lo que pasa y escucha el dolor. Somos latinos, hasta el amor. Mira lo que pasa y escucha el dolor. ¿Y ahora qué pasa? Martín no canta, Rosario en casa, él solo caía. ¿Y ahora qué pasa? Martín no canta, Rosario en casa, él solo caía. Suena el latido como un zumbido en el corazón. Latinoamérica, un pueblo herido con gran tesoro. Ya no más injusticia ni más terror. Es el grito que lanza unida esta región. Somos latinos hasta el amor. Mira lo que pasa, escucha escucha el dolor. Somos latinos. Esta es la voz. Mira lo que pasa y escucha el dolor. Somos latinos. Bueno, esto es un encuentro de paz. Esta
This
canción la
is
hice
a conference for peace. This
precisamente
song was written because at the time when I wrote it, there was no peace. It was written in 2020 where there was a massacre in Cauca.
asesinaron muchos niños.
Many children died.
Bueno, como artista también
And as an
decidí como
artist,
tener una postura frente a los
we
conflictos armados.
decided, or as an artist, I decided to take a stance. And as such, I wrote this song.
Bueno, vamos
So let's begin.
avanzando. Esta canción es como de las primeras que hice. Se llama
This is one of the songs that I wrote. One of the first songs I wrote, actually. It's called Aruru.
a no apresurarse a crecer porque todo el
It's a call out for people that want to grow up so fast. We think of children and they're always wishing to grow up so fast. And sometimes we shouldn't. We should wait, be patient with all these processes of life.
Gauta. Llanto, te digo, ya no crezcas tanto. Arru, 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 arru. Canta, ríe, sueña, juega, baila. Canta, ríe, sueña, juega, baila. Juegos de golosas, no juegos de dagas. Juegos de golosas, no juegos de dagas. Juega a colorear en vez de colorearte. Juega a colorear vez de colorearte, por más que madrugues, no amanece más temprano. Arru, 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 arru. Bueno, vamos a hacer un jueguito. Ustedes con las palmitas van a hacer chacha, 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 chacha.
We're going to play, or we're going to start clapping with your hands. I want you to please start. Tata, 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 clap, clap.
A que no envejezca antes de crecer. Esto es un llamado a la niñez. A que no envejezca antes de crecer. Esto es un llamado. Esto es un llamado. Vive la vida, pero a su tiempo. No te apresures, camina lento, vive la vida, pero a su tiempo. No te apresures, camina lento, camina lento. Arrurú, arrurú, arrurú. Palmitas. Arrurú,
Clap.
arrurú, arrurú. Ey, dime tú, ey, dime tú, ¿dónde quedó la pelota con su golosa? La imaginación, la ensoñación, la inocencia y el corazón. donde quedó. Ay, yo, ay, yo. Ay, yo, todos. Ay, yo, ay, yo, ay, yo, ay, yo, oí, ay, yo, oí. Ey, dime tú, ey, dime tú. Ay, yo, ey, dime tú. Me dejaron morir en el IO.
Not everyone joined me in singing, but that's okay. We're almost coming to an end. I want to talk to you about the river. The river flows, and just like the river, so does music. Music flows. And so when writing my music, I thought about women, women that go to the river to wash their clothes. And so this song is called By the River. I wrote it so that all of our sadness can just flow. Can everybody hear me, by the way? I just want to make sure that everyone can hear me. I'm trying to make sure that my microphone is on correctly. What do you think? Can you hear me? I think that if I move it here, it will be best. I want everyone to hear my voice. That is why I'm trying to fix it. So let's start singing. Actually, let's get rid of this guitar.
Ustedes se van a aprender el corito que dice.
You're going to learn the chorus. Le, le, li, le, le. Le, li, le, le.
¿Se lo aprendieron? Yo les voy a
Did you
contar
learn
tres y
that?
lo van a hacer.
I'm going to count to 3, and then I want everybody to sing it.
Vamos a entrenarlo de nuevo.
We're going to try it once again.
Muy bien, muy juiciosos. Ahora vamos a hacer palmas. Palmitas.
And now I want everyone to clap.
Muy bien. En el bullerengue se usan mucho
Clapping,
las palmitas.
clapping.
Porque pues no tenían muchos instrumentos.
Before, we needed to use our hands because we didn't have instruments, but now we do. Either way, I want everyone to clap. Please, everyone join me. Clap.
La bandera coge el trapo y no derrames tu tristeza. Deja que corre el agua dulce y no la sales con tu llanto. Mucha sal ya tiene el mar, leri, lerá. Mucha sal ya tiene el mar, leri, lerá. Fuerte esas palmas. Cha, cha.
Clap, clap, clap.
Por el río van flores, arrastrando sus olores. Por el agua van piedras, arrastrando únicas penas. Si las penas no se alejan, hacete un rezo y no detengas. Que el embrujo del amor le lerá. Que el embrujo del amor le. Vamos todos. Sí.
Come on, everybody.
Lerá. Lerá. Ahora viene esto.
I
Mucha
love this one
sal ya tiene el mar.
because he has too much salt.
Con mucha sal. Mucha sal ya tiene el
Because he has too much
mar.
salt.
Lerá. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much.
Bueno, yo soy la Tata Mendoza.
Well,
Y bueno,
my name is Tata Mendoza, and thank you very much for inviting me to be here today.
Hola, 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 hola. Ok,
Hello, hello.
muy buenas
Well,
tardes.
good
Primero,
afternoon,
agradecer la
everyone.
presencia
First of
de
all,
todas las personas
thank
que nos
you
acompañan
to
hoy.
all the participants,
Agradecer
our
la
audience
difusión de
today.
este tipo de espacios que promueven
Thank you
una
for promoting
discusión
these
abierta
kind
sobre los
of
impactos que tiene la
sessions,
militarización y el
promoting
militarismo en América
these
Latina.
the impact of
Antes de arrancar,
militarization in Latin America. Before
queremos
starting,
abrirle un
we
momento el micrófono
would
a
like
Yanni
to
Kelsey,
give the microphone to
miembro
Daniel
nacional de
Casey,
empleados bancarios
employee,
UNEP.
bank employees, National Union.
Compartir acá un pequeño saludo y luego entramos en
She's
materia.
going to give us some words and then we will continue with our session. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Gabriel. Greetings from the bank employees, National Union. This our ideology, our fight is the same for peace. And as it was mentioned before, we are in a world where they want war, and we are seeing genocide committed by Israel through Benítez against the Palestinian peoples, and today the second attack in the Lebanon. As Latin Americans, we must be aware of what is happening and rejecting the bases, these foreign bases all over Latin American territory. Welcome, Lanet. This is a space, this is an open union for all these kind of events. Thank you very much.
Bueno, muchas gracias a
Thank
Yanni por
you,
esas palabras.
Danny, for your words.
Vamos a arrancar entonces
Now we're going to continue
de acuerdo a lo que tenemos acá planteado en la agenda.
according to what we have in our agenda
La primera presentación
with the first presentation.
que va a estar a cargo de Diana Salcedo. Entonces,
Diana
vamos a hacer
Salcedo will be
una breve
speaking.
presentación de
Brief
Diana. Diana es
introduction.
psicóloga de la
Diana
Universidad
is
Nacional
a
de Colombia, máster en estudios de mujeres y
political
género social de la
specialist,
Universidad de
gender
Barcelona,
citizenship
máster en derechos humanos
in
de la
Barcelona
Universidad y
University,
democratización de la Universidad de
democratization
Alcalá de Henares
in
en Madrid.
Alcalá de Henares
Ella es
University, Madrid. She's a
antimilitarista,
feminist,
representativa de la
anti-military,
Comisión Intersectorial de
and
Garantías de
also
Seguridad y Defensoras y
representative
Lideresas
for
en
the
Colombia,
security and leadership
representante de
of
cuatro
Colombia,
organizaciones
and
nacionales en
delegate
la
for
Instancia Especial de
a
Mujeres para el
national
Diálogo para los
organizations
Derechos.
for the
Actualmente
peace
lidera la sección en
agreement.
Colombia de la
She
Liga
is
Internacional de Mujeres
leading
por la Paz y
the
la Libertad,
Women
LIPAL,
League for
que
Peace
posiciona
and
temáticas en torno a la
Freedom
recuperación
on
socioemocional de las
topics
víctimas, el
regarding
fortalecimiento de sus liderazgos
social,
sociales,
emotional
las garantías para la
matters
defensa de
for the
derechos
victims,
humanos y el
guarantees for
acompañamiento de
human
mujeres en el
rights, and
proceso de
also
reincorporación,
monitoring of
el fortalecimiento de
women
procesos
in
territoriales de
adjusting
incidencia social
to
y
territory
política para
processes
la
and
implementación de la agenda de
politics
mujeres,
when
paz y
for the
seguridad.
implementation of
Diana, muy buenas tardes, muchas gracias por tu
women
presencia.
peace. Thank you, Diana. Thank you for coming today.
Gracias. Bueno, muchísimas gracias a
Thank
todas
you.
las personas que están
Thank
aquí
you
y a
all,
quienes
the participants here and the ones who are
espacio.
joining and listening to us.
Muchísimas gracias por la
Thank
invitación
you for
a
the
compartir aquí.
invitation to
Primero
share
que
some
todo,
of
decir que
the
estas reflexiones no son
these restrictions. It's or some of these topics, they are not mine. This is part of collective reflection that we've done, not only from the Colombian section for Women for Peace and Freedom, but also for other colleagues in more than 40 countries in the world fighting against militarism and in different scenarios where we're dealing with different kinds of wars. Honoring them, I can say that their words are here through me. First thing I'd like to share is that the ones who are in on this stage or here, all these geopolitical implications, geoeconomic implications for us, not only military bases, but also the structure, the military structure that has a long legacy from the United States. We all know all their actions, but also the global north area, which is a common front to position all these proposals responding to the logic of militarization. Particularly, all these military logic have been subject to all these military feminist groups. We could say that this is in the structure of many of the feminist currents that accompany our political history and also our participation and our growth social movement in different parts of the world by giving a perspective, a different perspective. Nowadays, we talk about anti-militarism and feminist look, colonial perspective on how the establishing these military bases is not only establishing a military structure in a territory, but colonizing through all militarism, racializing all these territories and the people who are living in these communities. And as you may know, and you have been listening along this yesterday and through the agenda we have against militarization in Latin America, we have been in a strategic point to position these military agendas. We have made them. We have been. Let's say they have been using all these things, Cold War, and they are exploiting not only the territories but also the human beings who inhabit this part of the world, these countries and other parts in the southern of the world, and all these foreign powers were extending all their powers through all these countries. And we need to understand that we need to protect all the communities. All these bases have only not only have caused and uh, have been uh, taking their autonomy, but also impacting all these territories in their environment and territories. My colleagues on the table could share all these matters, and also they have impacted the communities, the local communities, not only a footprint, a repetitive footprint in our country by showing this atrocity phase and the impact they leave for people. And I'd like to focus a little bit more, and I've been asked to have a look through the multiple feminism on how are the main points on this concern and key concern for military bases in our territories. I'd like to mention four of these impacting blocks, impacting the lives of women. And before that, I'd like to mention how they impact the life of a woman, and if this woman could be a leader. They are impacting this woman, their processes, and their communities. In this sense, the first impact I like to mention is violence and the impact on the guarantee of women's rights. You know that women have different roles in leadership, political areas, community, focused on the care of life, not only by understanding the care of children, which is the basic one, but understanding care as a fundamental part on the defense of life. So these bases mainly are the focus of sexual violence, gender violence, not only in contexts where spaces are established and their action, but also by the exacerbation of this unproportioned masculinity and these unbalanced uh, actions on the use of the bodies and their sexuality of women. if we could, because we don't have resources, financing or funding this kind of research, we would see that there are figures increasing in places such as there are these military bases. That's the evidence, non-scientific evidence, because we don't have the capacity of create more research and including all these figures that will, or statistics that will allow us to compare facts. So we are a little bit thinking what we're talking about, what these women are telling us, and what they are telling us is that there is an increase in sexual transmission diseases, pregnancy increase, seduction by the military men to or men or women towards these women, and this is altering these social dynamics, and it are exacerbating all these existing vulnerabilities for all these communities with very low resources. So with this, do have this city that is capitalist with all the resources where there is no poverty. No, military bases are located in the poorest areas on the planet, and the idea here is to exacerbate these social dynamics, promoting uh, these impacts and this source of vulnerabilities that are already existing in these communities, which makes that this soldier or person is attractive and as an escape way of the structure that they are facing. These territories, these areas, and the militarization is the product of on this basis, and this is going to impact the well-being of women by increasing the risk of sexual violence and also the access to is health services in reproduction matters, and that's why they are located in these areas. Likewise, this allows to reinforce this imbalance, um, imbalance dynamics between for women, young women, children, and they exert control, coercion, and to exploit women and girls by using their bodies for military ends. In this context or in this framework, on the framework of all the research we have done with partnered with ALCOP, we have seen that, for example, there is in the public force or the public power, there is kind of a spirit or like a loyalty when these kind of violent facts are happening, taking them to the military bases, and that happens in the same way. By establishing a process of justice, fairness towards a military person in a foreign area, it's not the same as doing it for any of these persons or a national person for these local communities. There is a kind of a stereotype to avoid or not to have these access to justice or fairness processes because there is an invalidating intention of not believing these women and not ensuring the figure of heroism of this male subject who is the one wearing the uniform. And there is a perception that the military are above the law, Colombian or internationally military people. And that's why we feel that we need to start processing all these demands to these to all these military people who are not uh, uh, who will not be processed equally. That's why we've seen this environment impact that is very important, not only because of degradation of the environment, because that my colleagues will mention as well, but also because there is relationships that are not proportion for women who on in terms of human resources, natural resources. So these conditions that are happening are changing in the communities when there is military bases established. We've seen that if women had to go to collect water to a specific area and took 2 hours, now they are taking more time because they need to go in border. They need to border or go by the ages and not trying to be close to these military bases. And these are the kind of things that are happening because they have all these double double paths that they need to go through. And we have seen many cases where women have been victims of violence in these routes to get or collect water. Another effect that we've seen is the impact in sovereignty and the autonomy of communities, especially because establishing military bases in countries, particularly in Colombia, in Latin American countries, has been a decision of hasn't been a decision of the communities, but from the ones who have power, not political power, economic power. And in this sense, they have been never asked, there haven't been previous consultations or anything. It has been imposed. And when imposition or when this was imposed, all these social networks have been broken. And this is one of the big impacts when establishing all these military bases. Finally, and we could mention or discuss this the whole afternoon, when having these military bases in communities that were used to a different relationship with the military, this logic of safety from militarization, understanding that we are safe when there are military people in the area, or that we're going to have more response from the government because there is a big group of military people. This has shown that there are inequality conditions that are being deepened in access to resources to these territories and other things that are on second um, stage. And that's why these military bases, especially in Latin America, we've seen that women have been taking roles that historically have been assigned. Work they perform are related to care, clothes for the military, taking care of them, the land and food for them. And at the end, it's the same meaning. Militarized society implies all these reflections. And this is going to imply that we see military people there, but also imagine this imaginary situation of having this men, the male, so women in a territory where there are military men, and this implies that we can put in this center, or in this as a core, the discussion of not only of life, war. This is not discussion of life. This is not a matter of life. It's war. And that's why women have suffered this important load of militarization. Now, I'd like to leave this here and, well, to continue sharing all these.
Bueno, pues les invito por favor a compartir y agradecer con un aplauso la
I want
participación de
everyone,
Diana Salcedo.
please, to give a round of applause to Diana for her presentation.
Y complementar y recordar además que la
And I want
militarización
to
promovida por
remind
los
everyone
Estados
that the
Unidos en América
militarization
Latina no
promoted
solo a
by
través
the
de
United
bases
States in
militares
Latin America is not
y
only
la
through
presencia de
the
efectivos
presence
del
of
Comando Sur
of military bases in different places, in different geostrategic bases. It's also done through the distribution of weapons and through different means and through the actions and violence used against human rights defenders, against social activists who defend human rights, who defend the environment. And if you've noticed, Colombia, it has, in Colombia, there are many bases that are trying to secure the mining industry so that the natural resources are taken from our country. They're more focused on security for them than for the citizens. Prior to continuing with this presentation regarding the presence of U.S. military bases, I want to give a warm welcome to Laura Benítez. She is a biologist from the University of El Valle and a scientific researcher with a master's degree in environment and marine resources from the University of the Basque Country in Spain and from the University of Bordeaux in France and the University of Liege in Belgium. Laura's area of research interest is the ecology and conservation of marine mammals, focused on the study of the humpback whale population that breeds in the southern Colombian Pacific, especially in the Gorgona National Natural Park. Laura is currently the environmental justice professional at Baobab, which is the Center for Innovation of Ethnic, Racial, Gender, and Environmental Justice. Laura is also part of the scientific committee for the Gorgona National Natural Park and the activist group called Colectivo Unidos por Gorgona, United for Gorgona Collective. Laura, a warm welcome.
Laura va a presentar, entonces no sé si...
Laura is going to share a presentation.
Bueno, gracias.
Thank you.
Bueno, muchas gracias.
First of all, hello everyone. Good afternoon, and thank you so much for having me here. It is a pleasure to be here. I've always talked from a scientific perspective because that is what I studied. And now I'm talking more with a political perspective, which is very interesting for me. So I am very thankful and very grateful for everything and everyone who's been working to the defense of the Gorgona Natural National Park. And I would like to start sharing my PowerPoint.
Desde Zoom me dicen que se puede compartir.
Can you share it?
¿Ah, sí?
Can you see it?
No sé si se ve aquí.
I am not sure if we're going to be able to see it from this screen.
Sí, pero ya, okay. Ahí. ¿Y cómo puedo ir? ¿O es desde allá?
How can I change it? How can I move from slide to slide? Perfect. Let me start. Gorgona Island is an island found in the Pacific, in the South Pacific of Colombia, an island that has been generally forgotten by the state, but it's only remembered for military means. And now it's under the watch or under the eyes of the American military.
Va a ser complicado, yo creo. Pero bueno, ¿de qué hablaremos en
What
esta
will we talk about
intervención?
today?
De la localización
We'll
estratégica
talk
de la
about the
isla
strategic
Gorgona en el
location of
Pacífico Oriental
Gorgona
Central. Es
Island
muy
in the
importante
eastern
entender
tropical
este
Pacific.
inicio.
It's very
Luego de su
important to
importancia
understand
geopolítica, la
this
intervención
context.
militar
Then
de
we're going to
Estados
talk about the
Unidos y por
biocultural
último el
significance of the U.S.
contexto
military
político
intervention.
actual.
And
Bien.
then we'll talk about the current political context. Next slide.
Bueno, se va a demorar un poquito. Entonces, Gorgona está ubicada
Gorgona
en el
is
Pacífico
in
colombiano, pero hace
the
parte
Colombian
de un
Pacific,
corredor
but is
marino
part
mucho más
of a marine
extenso,
corridor that is
que es
quite
el corredor
extensive.
marino del este tropical.
It's
Entonces, este
an
corredor
eastern
marino hace
tropical
parte,
Pacific marine
digamos,
corridor.
hay 5 islas que hacen parte de este
And that
corredor, que es
means
la
that it's
isla
part of
Coiba de
5
Panamá,
different
Costa de
islands:
Cocos en Costa Rica,
Coiba,
Galápagos de Ecuador,
Coco,
Malpelo y Gorgona, que son
Malpelo,
colombianas. Entonces,
Gorgona,
el
which are
objetivo de
Colombia,
este corredor, siguiente, por
Galapagos,
favor.
All of these make up the CMAR, the Eastern Tropical Pacific Marine Corridor. And the objective is for us to be able to keep the biodiversity and marine life safe and protected. Over here, you'll be able to see that very close to the continent, it's not an island that is so far away. You'll be able to see that it's 35 kilometers away from Gorgona, from island. The homeland is only 35 kilometers away from the island, only 35 kilometers from Bazan, which is a beach. So even from this coastline, you'll be able to actually appreciate Gorgona Island. There, you'll be able to see that there is tourism here in Playa Bazan. And here, you'll be able to see the CIMAR, which is the Eastern Tropical Pacific Marine Corridor, and you'll be able to see the layout of all of the islands. This was created in 2004, and it was a regional initiative of conservation because there's so many tropical there's so much biodiversity. And so what we wanted to do by creating this entity is to make sure that we fight against illegal fishing and other illegal activities that affect the biodiversity. But what is it about this island that makes it different? Well, these are oceanic islands, which means that there is a lot of illegal fishing. These are oceanic islands, which are a little bit far from Gorgona. What does that mean? I wanted to explain to you why it's so important. And I know I'm getting ahead of myself, and I apologize for that, but that is why I shared this slide. I wanted you to understand what CIMAR is. It's a committee created of 4 environmental ministries by Ecuador, Costa Rica, Panama, and Colombia. And it's a technical committee made up of different scientists, and we all work for CIMAR. But then comes something else that's very important. One of the allies is the Department of State and of the United States. And so it's very important to understand that this is just a disguise in the name of marine conservation. It's just a disguise to really come in and set military bases. And why do I say that? I'm going to share evidence with you as to why I'm sharing this. So we need to understand the biocultural importance of Gorgona and why this corridor is so important for the United States. Why is it important for them? Gorgona is a national park which has 2 of the ecosystems that are the most productive, which is the tropical rainforest and the coral reefs. So I want you to understand how important it is. Gorgona has one of the coral reefs that have been the most conserved of the entire Eastern Tropical Pacific. From Mexico to Ecuador, there's no best place in this area that is more well conserved than the coral reefs of Gorgona. Not only that, but it also contributes to mitigating climate change because of the ecosystem. It hosts different species, endemic species, serpents, bats, among others, including the humpback whales. It's the only place where these humpback whales can actually go and rest. And that's why it is called the Island of Science. It's recognized by the International Union for Conservation of Nature Green List, which means this is a very important place. And it has an influence zone of 8 municipalities, 3 of Cauca and 8 of Nariño. So it's not a territory that is only important for its biology, but it's also cultural, spiritually important for these communities. So I am going to talk about something very important that also echoes what Diana mentioned. This area right here is militarized. It is not a secret that these are the main exits for drug trafficking. And I'm going to
la
share in the
militarización en la
following
isla
slide.
Gorgona. Entonces, ¿qué pasa aquí?
I'm going to talk more
En
about
el año
the military
2010,
bases.
el
What happened? In
Ministerio de Defensa
2010,
colombiano
the Ministry of Defense
pide
from
una
Colombia
licencia para hacer
requests
esta base
a
militar
permit to
y la
be able
Armada
to
Nacional de
install
Colombia
this
ejecuta el
U.S.
proyecto y el
military bases,
financiador,
and
¿quién
the
es?
armed,
INL,
the National
la
Army
Agencia de Asuntos
is
Antinarcóticos y
the one that
Aplicación de la Ley
executes it.
de,
And then
eh,
after that,
ok, de la Embajada de Estados Unidos.
it is
Siguiente.
accepted by the
Entonces,
INL,
el objetivo
and they are
general
the
de
ones
este
not only that are
proyecto es
accepting it, but
configurar la
rather
seguridad
funding the
nacional
entire
y,
project. What is their
específicamente,
general
control de
objective is to
narcotráfico,
contribute to the national
actividades
security
ilegales de pesca y uso
and to
inadecuado
make sure
de
that
recursos naturales.
there is
Pero,
no
oh
illegal
sorpresa,
fishing,
siguiente.
among
pasa
other
aquí?
things. But is
Que
that
ninguna
really
de
their
estas
objective?
tres cosas,
Well,
bueno, ahorita
first
hablo,
of all,
ocurren en la isla. Ya voy a especificar esto. Entonces,
I
¿de qué
want
se
to
trata
tell
este
you that
proyecto? De una
everything
torre
that
radar,
all of their
de un
objectives
muelle
are really
para
don't apply
embarcaciones
or are
militares
relevant to
y
the
área
island.
habitacional, bueno, todo lo que implica
So
tener los
in this
militares allí
island,
y un tanque de
what they
almacenamiento de
have done
combustible
is a
disponible a la vista.
radar
Esto
tower,
a grandes
a
rasgos,
pier,
¿cierto?
and a
Siguiente.
place where people can
Entonces,
stay,
todas
well,
estas obras
for the armed forces could
van a
stay.
causar
So
un impacto potencial en
all
la
of these
vida marina y
projects that
terrestre
I
de la isla.
mentioned before
Esto ha
are
sido una
going to
discusión
have a
muy larga de
negative
10 años
impact
entre
on the
científicos,
island
Armada,
and its
parques, gobierno
marine life.
nacional, en donde hemos expuesto
And
las
we
evidencias
have
científicas
talked
de que
about this.
van a
We have
ocurrir daños
offered
y que ya
scientific
están ocurriendo
data
daños porque
that all of
ahí
these
ya hay
negative
un
impacts
establecimiento de la Armada
will
Nacional
take
desde el
place if
2014.
these projects are given a
Entonces,
green
para
light.
sorpresa, en Gorgona
What
no
was
hay
our
pesca
surprise? In
industrial
Gorgona,
extranjera,
there
o
is
sea,
no
no
foreign
hay evidencia de
industrial
ello.
fishing. There
Entonces
is
pasa en
no evidence of
Ecuatoriano, en los
such.
costarricenses.
There are
Ustedes
no
vieron cómo
Ecuadorian
está ese
people. There
mar
are
ahí.
no
Esto
Costa Rican
sería un
people. You'll
escándalo,
be able to
como si
see
ocurre en
that the
Venezuela.
island is
Uno
so
escucha en las
close
noticias
to the
que está
land
pasando
that we would
algo
be able to notice if
sobre
something
esto.
illegal was
Incautaciones
happening,
de
which is
narcotráfico
not the case.
corresponde
The
a tan
seizing
solo
of
36 eventos en los
the
últimos
seizing
5
of
años. Esto fue un derecho de
drug
petición que se
trafficking
le
seizures
solicitó pues
correspond
a la
really.
Armada Nacional. Esta fue su respuesta.
The drug
Y por
trafficking
ejemplo,
is
para el año
really
pasado se han
for
incautado
last year, only
34.868
34,868
que
seizures
corresponden a
were done,
730,
which means
713 toneladas. ¿Qué quiere decir eso?
713
Pues que
tons.
es
What
mínimo,
do
es
I mean by
ínfimo.
that?
Entonces, ¿cuál
What
es
I'm
la
trying to
razón
say is
de
that
esta base militar
this
allí,
is
de esta unidad de
minimal,
guardacostas?
very, very little. So
Entonces,
what is the
sigue
point
la
of
peor
having
pregunta.
a
No existe
Coast Guard
evidencia de tráfico
there?
de fauna ni
There
tampoco
is
son de
no
uso
point.
inadecuado de
There is
recursos
no
naturales
evidence of
ni
wildlife
contaminación
trafficking,
marítima.
nor is
Así
there
que
any inappropriate
sigue
use
la
of natural
pregunta
resources and
siguiente.
maritime pollution. So I continue with
Bueno,
the
esta
question,
es una
what
evidencia del
is the
acuerdo que
real
existen
objective?
entre los
And I
pescadores
wanted to share
artesanales y
this
el
over
Parque
here, which is an
Nacional Natural
agreement
Gorgona.
for the
La
use
evidencia de
and
todo el
conservation of
proceso,
the
la
protected
cronología,
area.
¿sí?
You'll be able to see
Siguiente.
the chronology there. This is a process between
Entonces,
local
ya
fishermen and
en la
the
isla
community and the
han
organizations.
construido una
On the
torre
list, they have already
para poner este radar.
constructed
El radar
or
todavía no
built
está
a
puesto
tower
y
for
es
a
construida
radar,
por una
and it's
compañía que es
constructed by a company
estadounidense que se
that
llama
is from the
Cambridge.
United States
Y esto es
called
importante
Cambridge.
porque,
And this
siguiente,
is very important. Next slide, please.
en Costa Rica,
In
en la isla
Costa
de Coco,
Rica,
ya han
in
construido un
Coco
radar, una
Island, they've
torre,
already
también para
created a
sostener este
tower,
radar y
a
justamente
radar,
es la misma
and
compañía.
it's
Entonces
done by
empieza
the
uno
same
a hilar
company.
que es la intervención estadounidense, ¿cierto?
So
Haciendo
it's
presencia allí.
American
Y
intervention having a presence
lamentablemente,
everywhere.
pues la Armada Nacional ha engañado a la
Unfortunately,
opinión pública
the National
diciendo
Army
noticias
has
engañosas
lied,
sobre la
sharing
explotación de pesca ilegal en
news that
Gorgona,
is
entonces
not
pone cifras
true.
erradas, la
They're
gente no se da
saying
cuenta
over
pues dónde
here
está Gorgona,
that they
la
have caught
distancia,
different
entonces
people
siguiente,
doing
dice que hubo
illegal
incautaciones a
things.
90
They
millas
said that
náuticas y
there
cuando
were
uno mapea
seizures
esto, pues
done
algo en la altura,
91
ni
nautical
siquiera cerca
miles
a
from the
Gorgona que está
island,
aquí.
but in reality,
Entonces,
the radar is only able to
eso es lo que
capture
pasa, ha pasado
50
mucho
nautical
con este
miles, which
proyecto.
means there is no way
Y
that
esto
the
para
tower
justificar
would have
este
been
proyecto
able to
militar.
detect these
Siguiente.
90 miles, these nautical
Esto es lo que
miles.
les
So
decía.
this
Esta es
is
la
absolutely
compañía
not true.
que ha
This is
instalado
the
estos
company that I
radares en
mentioned
Costa Rica,
before.
por ejemplo,
In
en
Costa
Galápagos
Rica,
también, y ahora
you'll
en
be able
Gorgona.
to see
Siguiente.
that they also have a presence in the Galapagos Island. And now they have it
Y
in Costa Rica,
esta es
and
una
now they want to
evidencia
build it
de
here.
abril de este
This
año,
is evidence
donde
from
desde la Embajada de
April
los Estados Unidos de Colombia
2024,
dicen,
where the
solicitaron junto
American
con la Armada
Embassy
Nacional,
in Colombia
para hacer una jornada
shared the
médica,
following. They said that they
a
were going to
niños y
have
jóvenes en
a
Guate. No sé si
health
pueden ver bien, pero aquí, por
a
ejemplo, este es
health
un militar
project
estadounidense,
servicing the different
¿sí? Acá
communities.
también están. Entonces,
And
no es un
what they're
secreto, y la Armada
trying
Nacional en diferentes debates
they're
políticos que
trying to
hemos tenido con
pretend
ellos
that they're
han
helping the
manifestado que
community,
es
but really it's the
irrelevante
army,
la
and
manifestación de
they're
nosotros
trying to
a
promote themselves.
ponernos,
So it's not
porque
even a
siempre
secret,
también
and
decimos,
we
lo que pasa es que
oppose
esto está financiado por
this.
Estados Unidos.
This is
O sea, la
financed by
soberanía
the
nacional
United
está en
States.
riesgo, la
What does
soberanía
that
de los
mean?
pueblos,
Our national
etcétera.
sovereignty is at
Entonces, para
risk.
ellos es irrelevante, pero vemos
What
ahí
we see right
o sea, la
here
evidencia
in
de
these
que hay
pictures
una
is an
presencia
evidence
militar
that there is
estadounidense en el
military
sector.
presence in the
Siguiente.
sector. Next slide,
Y bueno,
please.
¿cuál es el
And what
contexto
is the
político
actual
actual?
political
Este
context?
proyecto viene desde el
This
2010,
project
o sea,
started
se
in
gesta en el gobierno de Juan
2010,
Manuel
so it
Santos,
started with
luego
Juan Manuel
sigue aprobado
Santos,
por
and then
Iván
it was
Duque
approved by
y
Iván
es
Duque,
ratificado por este
and it was
gobierno.
ratified by
Entonces,
this
hay una
government.
contradicción en los
So there is
discursos
definitely a
de este gobierno
contradiction
nacional que ha
between
sido
the
ambientalista,
discourse of this
protector de los derechos
administration that
humanos,
says
que
they
lucha por la
protect
justicia
human
social.
rights, that is
Entonces,
fighting
¿por
for
qué?
social
¿Por
justice
qué?
and the environment. So
Porque sigue
why?
pasando esto.
Why
Y
is
ahí
this
se ve el poder y la
continuing? And
intervención
this
de
is
los
where we
Estados
see the
Unidos todavía
power,
sobre
the
un país como
intervention
Colombia.
of the United States
Siguiente.
over a
No sé si
country
se
like
puede reproducir
Colombia.
este video.
I don't know if we will be able
Ya
to
aquí casi cerramos.
play this video. We're almost done.
No tiene volumen.
Apologies, it
Esta es
has
una
no
intervención
volume,
del
but this is
presidente
an
Gustavo Petro
intervention
diciendo
from
que
Gustavo
la lucha
Petro, the president, saying
contra las
that
drogas ha
that
fracasado,
the
¿cierto? Y hay
fight
que luchar
against
por la
drug
vida,
trafficking
que no
has
nos
failed, and now
acorralen,
we have
que
to
no
fight for
necesitamos de
life,
guerras, no
that we do
necesitamos
not
de
need
armas.
war, we do not need
Entonces, esto
weapons.
fue en el
This was
2022
said
y
in
luego siguiente,
2022.
lástima que no
And
se
then
escucha.
can we go to the next
En el
slide? And apologies
2023, el
because
año
this had no
pasado,
sound.
él
And
está
then
en
in
una intervención de una ceremonia de la
2023,
Armada
he
Nacional
was
defendiendo este
in
proyecto.
another
Entonces, es
ceremony in
bastante
the National
contradictorio,
Army,
nos duele demasiado. Hay
giving
una
a different
contradicción
discourse.
también dentro
So
del
there's
gobierno nacional
definitely
porque
a
la vicepresidenta
contradiction
Francia Márquez,
because
en
there's a
cambio,
contradiction.
está con las
Vice President
comunidades. Este
Francia Marquez
proyecto ha tenido
stands
dos
with the
cosas y es que
communities. And
uno ha
this
violado la
project has
consulta
had two
previa.
things.
Hoy por hoy el proyecto está detenido por
The project is halted
el Tribunal Superior de Bogotá,
by
¿cierto? Donde
the
detiene el
National
proyecto
Tribunal
porque la
of
Armada Nacional
Bogotá
tiene que hacer una consulta
because
previa
first,
a las
before
comunidades.
anything takes place,
Entonces,
there has to be a
pero gracias a
consultation
esto
with
está
the
detenido, no
communities.
gracias al gobierno
And because they
nacional ni
didn't
gracias
do
al
that,
Ministerio de
then
Ambiente, que
it
ha
has come
tenido
to a
una
halt. But it
lucha
wasn't, in
y una
fact, the
bandera
actual
ambientalista y
government
que al
that
final nos ha
made
dejado
this
solos.
halt
Y
possible.
además
No,
también
we
terminó
actually feel
uniéndose
like
la
we were
Armada
left
Nacional y
alone.
Estados Unidos
And
dando
the
una
National Army
información
and the United
engañosa sobre
States
este
are
proyecto.
offering
Los
fake
invito también a que
information
hicimos el año pasado un
or
documental con la
information that
revista
is
Raya,
not
es un
true. So
corto que está
what
en
we have tried to do
YouTube,
to
lo pueden
combat
escanear aquí o buscar, se
all
llama
of these
Peligran
narratives
Gorgona.
is we created a
Habla
documentary that
justamente
talks about
también
the
de las
danger or the
violaciones a
risks
mujeres que han
in Gorgona, and it
ocurrido
also talks
en el
about the
litoral, no en
violations
Gorgona, pero sí en
against
el litoral
women,
por
not
la
only on
presencia
the
militar.
coastline
Me
and on
llamaba
the
mucho la atención lo que
coastline.
decía la compañera porque
And
esto
I
también se
want to
evidencia
echo
allí.
what
Y en
my
Gorgona ya empieza a
compañera
aparecer
has
acoso,
mentioned,
¿cierto? O
because
sea,
in
empieza a
Gorgona,
sumarse la punta de
we have
iceberg y es lo
already
que se
seen
viene,
harassment
¿sí?
and gender-based
Entonces se transforma
violence.
la isla que ha
And
sido
so we're
dedicada a la
seeing
conservación, a la
an island
ciencia,
that
a la
is
educación,
dedicated to
al turismo
education,
sostenible
science,
en un
and
objetivo
sustainable
militar. No sé si supieron,
ecotourism,
hace un
to
mes o
now
este
it's
mes hubo un
being turned
atentado de
into
la
a
MAN
military
contra la
base. I
Armada
don't
Nacional en
know if you
Timbiquí.
remember
Timbiquí es
that,
una de las
I don't
zonas de
know if
influencia de
you know
Gorgona.
that there was an attempt
Entonces, ¿en qué se va
at
a convertir en
Timbiquí,
Gorgona también? En otro objetivo militar,
and
impuesto por los
Timbiquí
Estados
became
Unidos,
a
sin
military
consulta previa a
objective.
nadie
Is that what's
y
going to
menos a las
happen in
comunidades.
Gorgona? That is not
Entonces
of
es una
benefit to
evidencia más
anyone,
de ese
especially the
poder y de ese
local
control
communities. So
geopolítico sobre
again,
nuestro
this
país,
geopolitical
sobre
power
esta isla
that is
que más
always,
adelante podría
or
ser
this boot that has always
arrebatada.
been on
Y bueno,
top of
les agradezco
the
mucho.
peoples of Latin America continues. So again, I want to give, I'm very grateful that you all allowed me to be here. So thank you very much.
Bueno, agradecer la intervención de Laura.
I want to thank
eh,
Laura for her
y,
words.
Tomar en cuenta que la militarización, además de la presencia directa con soldados,
Militarization,
con
not only
bases,
with its
con
presence of
instalaciones,
bases,
también
of military
es una
personnel,
militarización
is
cultural.
also cultural
promueve a través del
militarization
cine, las
promoted
series,
through
los
theater,
videojuegos.
series,
Esto puede parecer un lenguaje
through
un poco
games.
ajeno a la
This
realidad
might
que nosotros como
feel as though
adultos
it's foreign
contemporáneos vivimos, pero
for
para
a
las
lot
nuevas
of us, but
generaciones
for the
es
new
fundamental. Y
generations,
desde hace más de
this
6
is
años se está
fundamental. And for
probando a
6 years
través de
now,
nuevas
through
plataformas,
different platforms,
estrategias de
there
reclutamiento
have
que
been
se
different
llevan a cabo a través de
strategies
los
for
videojuegos, concretamente a
recruitment
través de
being
videojuegos
done
como
through
Battlefield,
video games.
Call of
For
Duty o
example,
incluso
Call
el
of
nuevo
Duty,
Fortnite.
battle games, and
Y
even
de esta
Fortnite.
manera buscar la
And that
legitimación
is
de
a
la
way
guerra
for them
no
to
solo en estos
legitimize
nuevos
war,
entornos
not
digitales, sino
only
a
in
través
these
de las
new
redes
digital
sociales.
spaces, but also through
Esta
social media.
militarización cultural es parte
This
crucial
cultural
de la estrategia que usa
militarization is part of the cultural
Estados Unidos para el
militarization of
posicionamiento de la
culture
guerra
to
como
position
principal
itself
medio para la
as
resolución de
the
conflictos. Y eso lo
the
tenemos muy
main
claro en este
entity
país. En el año
that will
2014
bring
se lanzó un
about some kind
documental
of
llamado
resolution.
Apuntando al
There
Corazón
has been a
del director
documentary that
italiano
was
Guido
shared
Federico.
by
Y
Gil
en este documental
Federico, who is
entrevistan
from
al
Italy, and there
coronel que está a cargo
they
de
interview a
comunicaciones del
colonel that is in
ejército
charge of
y
the
él
army
dice, y cito
communication. And
textualmente,
what he says
nosotros
in
seguimos
that
la
video
línea de
is,
operaciones
we
y,
follow
perdón,
a
de
line of
comunicaciones del
operations
ejército
of
estadounidense
communications
y para ellos
the
son muy importantes las
United
operaciones
States. And for
psicológicas.
them,
Y de esta manera
psychological
él
or
introduce
psychology is very
cómo
important
se
when
llevaron
we're
a cabo
trying to
las
communicate.
campañas. Los
And
héroes
then
en
he went on
Colombia
to
sí
talk
existen
about
y fue
the
en la
different
causa,
campaigns, and
que
they
fueron
talked
dos
about how the
campañas
creation of
publicitarias que se
heroes
llevaron a cabo durante
in
casi
Colombia.
6
This was
años
some
y que
marketing
llevaron
that
al
was done for
ejército
at
de
least
ser una
6 months.
institución
And
que
the
contaba con el
objective was to
63%
create
de aprobación
an
en este
entity
país a
that
contar con
what
el
became very popular.
87% de
There was
aprobación,
an
lo cual la posicionó
87%
como la
approval
institución que
rate
mayor
of approval,
confianza generaba en los
which means
colombianos.
that Colombians
Entonces, el
trust
tema de la
these entities.
militarización
But all
también
of
es
this
cultural,
is
pasa por la
a
publicidad
marketing
médica,
strategy.
pasa por
So
todo
I
lo que
want us
estamos
to
viendo
understand that whenever we
en
talk
los
about
noticieros, en las redes
militarization,
sociales,
we don't
y ese es
only
un elemento
focus
también
or
a
we
tomar
don't
en
only
cuenta
mean
en medio
military
de
bases.
esto
We
que
talk
también se
about
está mencionando,
everything, the
o sea,
entire
en medio
structure,
de estas
including everything that
otras formas de
our
militarización que
presenters have
amenazan
mentioned. So there's
directamente la
different
soberanía
ways
nacional.
of militarizing
Vamos
that
entonces
directly
ahora a
impact
escuchar a
sovereignty.
Alejandra
Now
Rodríguez.
we're going to listen to
Alejandra
Alejandra
es
Rodríguez.
escritora, voluntaria de la
Alejandra
Corporación
is a
Mujer
writer and
Denuncia y
volunteer with the
Muévete
corporation
y de la Red
Corporación
Mundial por
Mujer
la
Denuncia y
Declaración de los
Muévete.
Derechos de las
And she's
Mujeres,
also a volunteer with the
WBI.
World Network for
Es integrante
Declaration of
también
Women's
de la
Rights,
colectiva
WDI,
Olga
and a member
Castillo.
of the
Así
Olga
que,
Castillo
por favor,
Collective. So
recibamos a Alejandra con un
please, let's
aplauso
give her a
y
warm welcome.
agradecemos su presencia en este espacio, Alejandra.
And we also, Alejandra, we want to say that we're very happy to have you here. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I think one key point before talking about militarization, we have to talk about the following. This is something that Gabriel talked about, which is security, the type of ontology that is given to us throughout the world. Whenever we are threatened, if we're threatened constantly, then of course this is very important. But there's something else that I want us to take into consideration. If we're under this constant threat, when are we going to be free to act in this world and to be free?
Entendamos qué es lo que no es justamente la militarización desde allí.
To understand militarization, first we need to understand what it is not. It is not a national identity, a sense of national identity. It is not a sense of unity. It is definitely not that. Does it combat crime? No, it is not. What is it then? I've already mentioned what it is not. It is a destruction of social, it brings destruction, it brings crime, it brings violence against or gender-based violence. It violates human rights. It is forced displacement. It's an infringement or violation of
premisa
national
más
territory and
importante
sovereignty.
y es la mirada eco. Sí. Generalmente cuando hablamos de seguridad
Generally,
hablamos de
whenever
un
we talk
término
about security,
antropocentrista.
we think about
Todo gira en torno
ethnocentrist
a nosotros.
perspective. Everything revolves
Y es
around us.
esa mirada que debe reformularse de alguna manera.
And we have to change our way of thinking.
Desde Kant, de alguna
Any
manera,
good
hasta hoy,
activism from Kant to today
nos hace girar en torno a que
makes us
somos parte de
revolve
algo mayor
around something
y no
much
que
bigger.
somos el centro de
We're not
absolutamente
the
todo y el
center of the
universo.
universe. And I think that that is what we have to
Del
think.
problema de
That
pretender
is
que
part of the
estamos
problem.
amenazados y
Let's
que
stop
somos
pretending like
incapaces
we are under
de
threat
vivir
and that
de
we are
alguna manera
incapable to
dentro de
live in a
algo
way
más grande que
that
nosotros,
is
del cual
much
somos
bigger than
absolutamente
us.
responsables de
We
mantener
are
su
responsible and we
vigencia y
must take on that
derechos. Y
responsibility.
hablo de derechos
We
en
are
plural
responsible. And whenever I talk
porque
about rights, I mean
justamente
rights in plural.
creo que
Why do I do
esto
that?
grande que nos alberga debería tenerlos para no ser, para que nosotros no seamos cómplices
We must
del Dios de la
understand
guerra que
the
es el
empowerment
capitalismo.
we have, and
Sí,
then that way we'll be able to
en un
break
libro
away
que
from
se llama
this
Capitalismo
capitalism,
Caníbal,
from this
justamente
God
Nancy
that we've
Fraser habla
created
de que
named capitalism.
normalmente
There's
hay
a book that
eh,
speaks about,
hay una separación, se tiende a
it
hacer una
talks about a
separación
separation.
entre lo
This
que
book
sería
talks
el
about the
Estado y lo que es el
separation between the
capitalismo,
state
cuando
and
realmente
capitalism,
no la
but
hay,
really that is not the case. There is no
no
such
la hay.
division.
Y yo creo que es ahí importante
And I think this is important to
plantearnos todo
highlight.
lo que venga
We have
después y
to
mirar
understand
las
what
ideas de
comes
una manera
next. Let's look at ideas.
separada,
And
quizás
when we see these ideas,
nos ayude a entender la relación entre guerra y
and
capitalismo,
if we understand the
porque
link between war
padres
and
del mundo, los
capitalism,
patriarcas del mundo,
why would the
les conviene
patriarchs of
andar
the world
haciendo su juego y vendernos a
do this,
nosotros de este lado
sell
del
this
mundo
game to
su
us?
idea de protección,
Tell
pensando
us what
solamente
this protection
en soluciones a
idea
través de la
is.
fuerza pública,
Why do they
sino que la
continue to
fuerza
try to
pública tiene
manipulate the way that we
una
think?
suerte de jerarquía también.
Why do they
Y
want to
ellos,
continue keeping this
por ejemplo, en
hierarchy?
el caso
Them,
que sanciona nuestra colectiva
they
Olga Castillo,
sanction our Olga Castillo collective.
permitieron los abusos de militares
They allowed
estadounidenses
these abuses
a llevarlas
led
a cabo.
by the U.S.
Y estamos hablando,
military
sí, aquí en
personnel.
Colombia, creo que la
This
compañera
U.S.
anterior hablaba
military
de los
personnel
peligros de la
violated the
operación
rights
militar de
of
Estados
young
Unidos
girls and women.
en los países.
And this is not
Y
new
aquí en
because
Colombia, bueno,
they
pues
have
obviamente Plan
already done
Colombia
this
es
in
como
in
una
other
operación
places.
que se
And
hizo con
Plan
Estados Unidos, pero
Colombia
que
is actually part of
detrás
a bigger plan.
justamente de
But
lo que
what
les
was behind
mencionaba
that plan?
anteriormente, lo que
Precisely
sí
what I
es la
mentioned before.
militarización,
What is
que era esta idea de
militarization? It
soberanía,
is the
tejido
destruction of
social,
sovereignty,
la
of
complicidad de
social
militares y de
relations,
lesa
it's
humanidad,
complicity,
¿sí? Y
it
no
is
solamente lo
it
vemos en
is a
Colombia,
crime
lo
against
vemos también,
humanity, and this is
bueno, ¿qué
something that we
pasa con
see
las
so
intervenciones militares
transparent
de
in
Estados
Colombia.
Unidos
What
cuando se
happens with
interviene
all
en
of these
Latinoamérica?
military
Bueno,
actions
pasa lo que
from
sucedió
the United
en El
States in all of
Salvador,
Latin America? Do you
en
remember what
países
happened
de
in El Salvador?
Latinoamérica. Realmente
It
ha
was
sido
nefarious,
nefasto
everything that
y ha sido
happened there,
nefasto porque
along
resulta
with
que
other places within
en
Latin
medio
America.
de que
It's a
nos
shame that
aislamos
all
de
of
ese
this
sentido
happened.
eco del que les
So
hablaba
if
anteriormente,
we isolate
llega el
ourselves,
concepto de
or
seguridad
if we
antropocentrista.
live in this
Sí.
way as individuals
¿Qué
only
pasó
without
aquí? Yo
thinking
pienso
how
que
it
es
impacts
importante que
all of the
hagamos un
universe,
stop
so what
para
happens?
recordarles el caso de la colectiva que denuncia la colectiva Olga Castillo.
Apologies, I
Olga
lost a
Castillo
bit of the
fue
sound
una
there.
mujer que
Who was
durante
Olga
16
Castillo?
años
Olga
denunció las
Castillo that was
violaciones de
a person
militares
that after
estadounidenses
for
a
many years
niñas
she
en el
denounced
contexto
the rapes,
colombiano,
the harassment,
fundamentalmente
the
porque
abuse
Jessica
to
Beltrán a sus
young
16
girls
años
and women. Why?
fue,
Because
quien era
Jessica
su hija,
Beltrán, who was
fue
Olga
abusada, fue
Castillo's
drogada
daughter,
y abusada
she was
en la base militar de Tolemaida, que tiene injerencia militar de Estados Unidos. Creo que también es importante hablar
raped, and
de
therefore
que
Olga Castillo, her
declaradas
mother,
bases militares de
denounced all
Estados
of this.
Unidos puede ser que
She said
los
that
medios no se
the
atrevan a
U.S.
decir que
military
tenemos
bases
tantas,
were
pero cuando
hiding
hablamos de
all of
injerencia
these
militar de Estados
atrocities.
Unidos sí
They were
podemos decir
hiding
que
all of
fuerza
these
pública está
crimes
arrodillada
perpetrated by the US military. And we have to be able to be bold and say that these were, in fact, abuse to human rights. With the current agreements, they all have immunity. They all have immunity, so nothing can be done, or not much can be done. But I want to say something, that when Pedro was part of the Congress, he heard Olga Castillo's story. And what he said was that he would make sure that there was justice and lift this diplomatic immunity. That's what he said. And yes, we recognize that this is difficult. I understand. But we're with a new administration that, well, we're going to see if he's actually is committed to the peoples. And this is something that they're going to have to prove and clarify. I also want to say that it's quite sad, everything that has happened in Yuinukak, with the Yuinukak peoples. Because when Olga Castillo denounced what had happened to the 53 girls and women, it happens that in this place, previously mentioned, in 2018 to 2020, there have been 587 reports of human rights violations, and nothing has been said, not a word, completely mute. Nothing nothing has been said or done. Yes, okay, they said that that they are sorry and they asked for forgive. They actually asked us the numbers, and they said to us, what do you think would be the best way to confront this situation? In reality, the ones that should be doing something about preventing these kinds of situations from happening should literally be the institutions of the state. So when we're talking about, so they're not really taking ownership. They're not taking, or they're not being accountable. Who is supposed to have the experience? The activist who's working from grassroots, or the ones that are coming from the institution that are supposed to prevent these issues or these crimes from happening in the first place? So it really re-victimizes, because what it does is that for 16 years now, we talk about more than 20 institutions that Olga talked about, institutions that Olga sought, institutions that Olga wanted to talk to so that they could be heard. She wanted them to take on these cases. And then they went and said, well, the ones that are really guilty are the ones from, or the embassy from the United States. And then when we go to the embassy of the United States, what they said, okay, there is arrest warrant. Yes. So we've already done that against Cesar Ruiz, who was a contractor of the military base, and also against Michael Cohen. But what happened? What happened? There was no really access to justice. We continue to be submissive, absolutely submissive to these alliances, to this cooperation with the United States. And this should be criticized. We should all talk about this. We should call it out. In my case, in my collective and the rest of organizations, we've been very loyal about that. We've been very loyal by voting with those people that listen to us, that make us feel heard. So I think it's very important for everyone to call it out.
I think the only sovereignty that is warranted by militarization is the sovereignty of violence. That's what I think, which is not something we defend here. And it's the moment of demanding warranties of prevention and how we're going to deal with this situation. We have sent already some questions regarding how this will be prevented and how this is going to be avoided, this kind of violence that have not been sanctioned. And this is still happening. And this is making vulnerable all these indigenous communities and all the ones who are in backgrounds of vulnerability of this country. So I think that we should reflect on this and that first of all, we must change our vision, which is anthropocentrist, which avoid us to understand this fundamental stone of war and then being criticize the government or what we are dreaming of. I mean, so this doesn't happen or this that we don't get a bill that we don't want from all this what is happening now. Thank you.
Muchísimas gracias a
Thank you
Alejandra
very much,
Rodríguez,
Alejandra
que
Rodríguez.
nos deja una frase importante
You're
para
leaving us
concluir ahí, una
an
pregunta de
important
esas
phrase.
que se
These
quedan resonando en el
questions that
ambiente, generan eco,
that
generan
remain an
y generan inquietud.
echo.
La
Some
única
more thoughts,
soberanía
so
que
many other
garantiza la
thoughts. The only
militarización
sovereignty
es la
that
soberanía violenta.
militarization where it is
Y
the
es además
sovereignty
una
of
violencia que se
violence.
expresa
And
en
this
múltiples
violence
formas.
is
Así como se
expressed in
menciona acá la
different
violencia
ways,
contra
as
las
this
menores
is
que fueron
as there
abusadas
is violence
sexualmente
to
por parte
these
de integrantes de las fuerzas
minors
militares
who were
estadounidenses,
abused,
en
raped
la investigación
by
Violencias
the U.S.
Invisibles,
military,
de la cual ahorita
invisible
va a
violence
salir
as
la
well.
segunda parte de esa investigación ya la segunda
The
semana de
second part of
octubre.
this
Una
research is going
investigación
to
que, como
be
mencionó
released
Diana, estuvimos
as the animation
desarrollando
with
junto con
being
Pali y Acosta.
working on
En la primera
with
investigación
Limpaliakov.
encontramos un
And
dato
the
y es
first
que entre el
research, there is
2015 y el
data
2017,
between 2015 and 2017
4.463
for more
efectivos
than
de la fuerza pública
4,000
colombiana fueron
police
investigados por violencia
officers
contra las
were
mujeres.
investigated
De estos
because of violence
4.463, solo
to women,
87
and
fueron
only
condenados,
87
lo cual habla
were
del pavoroso nivel de impunidad que hay
condemned
cuando se
or
busca
were really
justicia
prosecuted.
por
When we look
agresiones
for
sexuales
a
perpetradas por hombres
justice,
armados, bien sean nacionales y aún
these
más,
rapists
como bien
or these other
lo explica la
cases,
compañera
as
de
it
la
is,
colectiva Olga
as our colleague
Castillo, cuando
explained,
son integrantes
Colectivo Olga,
del ejército
when these
estadounidense se vuelve
people are
todavía
part of
más
these
complicado.
US military, it's even more
Vamos
complicated.
entonces ahora
Now,
a
we're going to
darle el espacio a la
give the floor
presentación de la compañera
to
Paola Gallo,
our colleague
que nos va a
Paola
acompañar por
Gallo.
Zoom.
She's going to be with us
Paola
through
es
Zoom.
abogada, cursó
Paola
estudios de maestría en Defensa Nacional en la Escuela de la Defensa, Buenos Aires, Argentina. Es
studied
graduada del
in Buenos
Diplomado
Aires, Argentina,
Internacional de Verdad
graduated
y
in
Construcción de
the
Paz de la Universidad Pedagógica
construction
Nacional.
of peace.
Es copresidenta
She
de
is
MOPASOL,
co-president of MOPASOL,
coautora del libro Malvinas,
co-author of the book
Descolonización,
Malvinas,
Paz y Soberanía,
Decolonization, Peace and Sovereignty.
miembro del equipo
She's
realizador de la
member
película Tarará,
of
la
the
historia de Chernobyl en Cuba,
movie Tarara in
directora del
Cuba,
festival
in Cuba.
virtual Somos Antídoto,
She's
presidenta de la
also
cooperativa
the
de trabajo
director of Somos
limitada,
Antino
y si lo
and the
contamos,
president
y
of
miembro de
Limitada
la
and
de
member
Ediciones
of
Luxemburgo. Así
Luxembourg,
que,
Ediciones
bienvenida
Luxembourg.
Paola, muchas gracias por tu
Welcome,
participación.
Paola. Thank you
Es
for
el
participating in
auditorio
this
es tuyo.
event.
Tardes, ¿se escucha bien?
Good afternoon. Can you hear me well?
Genial. Bueno,
Good.
reciban un abrazo muy fuerte, compañeras,
Greetings,
compañeros.
greetings to all of you,
Quiero
colleagues.
empezar agradeciendo a
First
la
of all,
organización
thank you.
Mundo Más Allá
Thank
de
you,
la
the
Guerra
organization,
y a
A
Gabriel Aguirre
World
por esta
Beyond
invitación
War,
para participar
and Gabriel Aguirre
como
for this
decimos en
invitation,
Colombia, aquí
participating here. I'm
esta juntanza
Colombia,
por la paz,
Argentina,
¿no? Que podríamos decir
and thank you
este
for letting me
encuentro
participate
en el Día de la Paz.
here
Aquí en
today and
Argentina,
the Day
el
of
Día
the
de los
Peace,
y
and
las
in
jubiladas
Argentina,
también
the
en
Day
la
of
primavera.
retired people and the
Y
spring.
cuando pensaba
I was thinking
en cómo abordar esta
about
conversación
how
con
to
ustedes
approach
en la
this
distancia,
discussion
desde la
with you
virtualidad, que
far from
implica
you
una dificultad,
remotely,
obviamente.
which is a challenge as well, not
Para
being there
poder
with you.
encontrarnos, ¿no?
and to find a good approach in this nonverbal communication, which is also very important when we discuss these existential matters, militarization.
Me preguntó un niño, ¿cuántos días,
A child asked me,
cuántas
how
cosas
many
se
days,
festejan o se
how many
conmemoran hoy,
things
¿no?
are
Entonces
commemorated or
era el Día de
celebrated
la
today?
Primavera y de la Paz.
Retired People Day, the
Y
Peace
me di
Day,
cuenta que
the Spring
tiene
Day
que ver
celebration.
todo
And I
eso
realized that all
con lo que
that has to
estamos
do with
tratando, o por lo
what
menos
we are
con
discussing today,
el
or at
curso
least
de las
how,
hipótesis de trabajo
or the course of the
que
work
viene
hypotheses
desarrollando el
that
Mirasol,
are
que es la
being developed by
organización en
Marasol,
nombre de
that
la
is the
cual estoy
organization
hoy acá hablando,
I
¿no?
am
El
working
Movimiento por
for,
la Paz, la Soberanía y la
the
Solidaridad
movement
de
for
los pueblos.
peace, sovereignty, and people's.
Hay una pregunta
There is a question
que nos parece
that
que hay que insistir mucho
I
y es cómo
think we need
lograr
to
hablar
insist
de
more.
bases militares
How to
imperiales, de
talk about
militarización
these
imperial como un
power
tema que
bases,
atañe, como un tema que importa
imperialistic
a la
bases
vida
to make
del día a día de
life
las personas
becoming more
trabajadoras que
important
viven de
for
su
the
trabajo.
for
Y
the
hoy en
daily
día
activities of people.
en Argentina,
And
por ejemplo, la
here in
mitad de esa
Argentina,
población
half of
está
this
bajo la línea de
population
la pobreza.
is below
Tenemos
this
que
poverty line.
pensar en clave
We need to
200
think
años de doctrina Monroe,
about these
que
200
fue una
years
gran declaración de guerra contra el
of the World
continente.
Declaration,
Pensar
which was
200 años
right,
de
the
generación
200 years of
de este cambio climático
the creation of this climate
producido
change
por los
caused
humanos.
by human
Es también
beings.
una clave
It's
para
also
pensar lo que nos
key to
sucede.
think what is
Pero a
happening.
esto venimos hoy
And
a proponer
today we're here
un tema
to
más,
propose one
y es
more
el
topic,
tema de las jubilaciones. Esto
retiring.
parece difícil de poder, como en el
It seems to be
rompecabezas
hard to
se
make
cuadra, se
up this
posiciona
puzzle
este
and how it
pensamiento. Y
is
es que
positioned, this thought
con
being
el
positioned
proceso
there.
que estamos
And
viviendo
to
hoy,
make with the
dramático,
process
de
we're
saqueo,
living quite dramatic of,
nosotros lo hemos caracterizado como un gobierno
we have characterized this as
fascista, un fascismo del siglo XXI, ya que es un
faces
proyecto
a
de
government,
deshumanización
a
total y de
project of
saqueo de todo,
dehumanization
como nosotros
for
venimos definiendo al fascismo.
the looting of everything that's fascism for us.
Las imágenes de Argentina en el mundo pueden
Images from
sintetizar lo que
Argentina
está
in the world
sucediendo y lo que tiene
could
que ver la
summarize what is really
militarización
happening
imperial
and what
con
imperial
el día a día de nuestros
militarization
pueblos. Y si
is
ustedes
on
han
the
visto
day-to-day
recientemente
of
las
our
imágenes
peoples.
de la
And you've seen
represión
all this
a
repression
jubilados
on
y
the media
jubiladas
to
jóvenes.
retired people.
¿Y esto qué tiene que ver con la
What does
militarización?
this
Bueno,
have to do with militarization?
les quiero contar que cada
Let
vez
me
que la
tell you
Argentina se
that every
posicionó,
time Argentina has been
se alineó a la
positioned
OTAN,
or have been aligned to
el gran patrimonio público del pueblo argentino
with
fue
NATO,
saqueado. Ese
we've been
patrimonio
looted.
público del
This
pueblo
public
argentino, ¿a qué me
patrimony
estoy refiriendo?
of the
Es el de las
Argentinian
jubilaciones,
people is what has to do with
es el de
retired
los
people,
recursos de la seguridad
the
social.
resources of
Argentina
social
firma el
security.
acuerdo con Estados Unidos
Argentina signed the
para
agreement
tener
with the
calidad de
United
aliados
States to
transparentes
have
en el año
a
98.
quality of being
Y fue en
allies
ese
of NATO
momento en el que se
in 1998. And
privatizó
then we
el sistema jubilatorio argentino y que implicó un
privatized the
saqueo
system
brutal,
of
inédito,
the Argentinian pensions. And
para el
that was
pueblo
brutal
argentino que
for the
desencadena en la
Argentinian
crisis, en la gran crisis del
people,
2001 en
which
Argentina, que
triggered the
seguramente
big crisis
la
of
mayoría de ustedes
Argentina
saben por qué
2001,
vino, ¿no?
and many of you know what I mean.
Y hoy, cuando el gobierno argentino
When the
decide
Argentinian government
escalar el alineamiento
now try to
de
escalate this
Argentina
alignment
a la OTAN
to
y pide ser
Argentina
socio global
towards NATO and wants to
y se
become
alinea con
global
el
partner
conflicto de la OTAN
and is allied
en
to the
Ucrania
NATO
o en
conflict
Palestina.
in
Se
Ukraine or
alinea al Estado de Israel.
Palestine, and they align to the Israel state.
Vuelve a verse,
That's
aparece el
when
patrón del saqueo en el gran
there is
patrimonio del pueblo
a
argentino,
looting
que es el tema de
power
la
of
seguridad
the
social.
Argentinian people, which
Ya
is
hay un proyecto de
social
reforma.
pensions. There
Estoy
is a
hablando
reform project
de
there
ese
or
lugar
bill,
común que es
and
falso,
we're
que esto
talking
existe
about
en la
this
crisis.
common area prices
Y
system,
por supuesto,
and that's
el
why
aumento
there
del
is an
gasto
increase
militar
of
que
military
se está haciendo
expenditure
efectivo
that has been effective in the budget law that was submitted by my government, or by this government last week. They haven't voted yet, but this is duplicating the military expense for defense and security, and is reducing pensions dramatically. All variables have shown how the big affected ones of this regime of fascist characteristics is this sector of people, retired people. This is a reflection I'm bringing today because I think that the pension reform approved by Colombia in a moment, even all the contradictions, all the difficulties and challenges and some expectations that have been happening or frustrated the Colombian people, made that Colombia could think that they could progress or advance to a total peace, or maybe that they could advance in a pension regime. And that's what we thought in Mopasol. This is not random. This is not random. There is a second topic before talking, explaining or showing to you these military bases, climate change. This is another analysis axis that from Mopasol we have been working on to understand this militarization on the day-to-day for people. We're interested in bringing this militarization topic to the day-to-day basis, to a daily situation. Climate change, green imperialization, they are all topics that make us analyze so extensively everything. And I don't have the time because I need to explain some other things. But we consider from Mopasol that there is a project of domination that is clear from NATO, which is linking climate change and is working on managing climate change from militarization. And that's why the United States have not signed any agreement or treaty regarding climate change management. When the United States is discussing all these treaties as Kyoto or Paris treaties, they are discussing that the greenhouse effects, military bases, and other matters are not included because of national security matters within the variables that are measured on how militarization is really contaminating. That's on one hand. But there is another analysis vector: climate change, military bases, and imperialistic bases. They are arguing that the military instrument could be a green instrument. We think that that's pretty dangerous. I mean, to simplify this energetic transition and to pass from one energy to another one, it's more complex than that, because all these could be with batteries and with those tanks and these bombs or these naval forces, green forces, they're bombing cities, killing people, looting communities. We need to advance in matters of climate justice. That implies to focus on measuring, reducing ambiguity. When we talk about climatic or climate justice, what is it? We need to understand this militarization variable and to measure it. That's why we need to be all together, who advocate for peace, all of us, to have hard data on that. It's important what my colleagues mentioned, to submit, to understand this need, this necessity, and measure in all our territories with all our peoples on how this is affecting these variables on a daily basis, imperial bases, and our people.
Aquí quiero hacer un paréntesis
Now,
y,
let me tell you
y avanzar
something else.
con la
I
imagen,
like to talk
una imagen muy
about
simple, un mapa
something
que
using by using an
necesito mis
image. I
compañeros
have
y
a
mis
map
compañeras
here.
que están haciendo el apoyo logístico a
Please,
la
could you
conferencia
help
de
me
poder
showing
compartir
these slides I'd like to
la
present?
imagen del mapa
There's a
argentino, el
map
mapa oficial
image.
argentino,
It's the
donde están
Argentinian map where
las bases militares que hoy
the
operan en
military
Argentina
bases
y
are
que están
located,
en
the
el
ones that
centro de la
are
conferencia.
located in Argentina, and we are reporting, denouncing in this conference.
Perfecto. Bien. Bueno, yo estoy viendo compartido. Todos están viendo el
I
mapa.
can see the map. Can you see the map?
Perfecto. Sí, ahí veo la pantalla. Bien.
Yes, I can see
Bueno,
the screen now. Well,
este mapa de Argentina.
this map, the
Este mapa
Argentinian
está,
map, this map is
segmentado. Hay un mapa anterior que
segmented.
muestra
There is a
todo el
previous
mapa
map that
de
is showing the
Argentina.
whole map of
Luego es el
Argentina,
mapa bicontinental, ese
the
que hay fechas
bicontinental one,
exactamente.
that one. Thank
Este
you.
es el mapa oficial de la República
This is the
Argentina,
official
que nos
map
permite
for of
dimensionar
the Argentina Republic. It helps
en
us
la geopolítica de la
dimension,
cartografía
geopolitically
lo que
speaking,
significa
in the
la
cartography,
República
what
Argentina
Argentina
en el área de
Republic means
influencia
in
del
the
Atlántico
influence
Sur,
area
del Canal
of
de Beagle,
Southern
de la
Atlantic,
Antártida y
Beagle
de la inmensidad del
Channel,
territorio
Antarctic,
que
and the
estamos
dimension of the
hablando,
territory
¿no?
we
Cuando hablamos
are
de
discussing
militarización.
today when we talk about militarization.
A ver cómo. Listo. Ahora podemos bajar. Perfecto.
Yes. Thank
Entonces,
you.
ahora ya vemos acá una parte de ese mapa que
Now
les
we
acabo de
can see one
mostrar,
part
el
of this
mapa
map
bicontinental
that I'm
asociado
showing
a
you,
lo que es
this
de americano y antártico,
bicontinental,
que es el mapa argentino oficial que se
Antarctic,
señala en
and
su pantalla.
American that is
Esos cuatro
map that is
círculos rojos en el mapa.
showed
Voy a
in schools.
empezar
The part in red.
por el más
I'll
reciente
start by the most
y es el
recent
más ovalado que está
area.
arriba.
It's the
¿Sí?
oval area, the biggest one
Estos son
on the
cuatro
top.
escenarios
There are
donde
4
o hay una base
areas
militar
where there
o
are
hay ya un
military
acuerdo, un
bases or
memorándum
a memorandum,
en
an
el que se autoriza
agreement
la creación
where they
de
are
una base militar.
authorizing the creation of a military base.
Entonces empiezo con el
Let me
círculo rojo
start
que está
by
arriba.
the
Ese
first
círculo rojo que
circle,
ustedes lo ven
oval
muy
area
cerca de
in red
Uruguay,
that is close
muy
to
cerca de
Uruguay,
Brasil,
very
muy
close
cerca de
to
Paraguay,
Brazil,
muy cerca de
close to
Bolivia.
Paraguay, and close
Y que
to
además es una
Bolivia.
zona de suma
This
riqueza.
is
Acá en
a
Argentina les
rich
llamamos la
area. We call
Mesopotamia,
them the
porque es un territorio que está
Mesopotamia
bañado
because it is
por
completely full
ríos
of rivers,
caudalosos y son tierras sumamente fértiles.
fertile land.
Este sector le llamamos el
This
complejo
sector is
hídrico
called
Paraná,
Hydric Complex, Parna,
El
Paraguay.
proyecto neoliberal en la Argentina
The
le ha llamado
neoliberal
la
project in
hidrovilla.
Argentina called Hydro Village.
Acá están es un corredor litoral de
This is the
3.400 kilómetros de extensión
corridor of
y que abarca
more
los
than
ríos
3,000
Paraná,
kilometers of extension and
Paraguay
is
y Uruguay.
overarching Paraguay, Parana, and Uruguay
El
rivers.
río Paraná es
Parana
uno
River
de los 6 ríos más
is one of the
importantes del
6
mundo.
most important rivers in the world.
Y en este
And
complejo
in
hídrico
this hydric
es por donde
complex
se
area,
transporta
it's where
el 80% de las
80%
exportaciones
of
de la
exportations
Argentina
is
hacia el mundo.
transported from Argentina towards the whole world.
Los últimos 2 años ha sido un tema
The last 2
álgido de la
years,
política
the past 2 years
argentina
has been quite complicated in Argentina.
y en noviembre del
And in November
2023, o sea, durante el gobierno de
2023,
Alberto
during
Fernández
the
y Cristina Fernández
government
de
of
Kirchner,
Cristina Fernandez and Alberto Fernandez,
se firmó un memorándum en
they
noviembre
signed a
antes de que
memorandum
asumiera
in November before they
para que
passed
la rama de ingenieros del Comando Sur
they became presidents for the
trabajara allí
Southern
en el
Command,
dragado de
worked
ese
there.
río. Y en marzo de este año,
And in
ya con el
March this
gobierno
year,
de Javier Milei, en esta actual gestión, se firmó
through Javier
otro
Milei's
memorándum,
government, they
el
signed
4 de marzo,
another
en el
memorandum,
que se
March the
autoriza a
4th,
la creación
where
de una
they
base
authorized the
militar
creation of a
permanente
military base of Southern
a
Command
la vera
there,
del río Paraná.
on the verge of River Parana.
Yo les pido que
Imagine, you know, Argentina is a country that they called the barn of the world. They say that we can feed the world. Everything goes through there. 80%. Maybe you remember the general of Southern Command in Laura Richardson. She came twice to Argentina the past 2 years and a half. Maybe you listened to her saying that they have a strategic independence of our resources. 90%. They have this dependent. They're dependent on 90% of production. All that has to do with national security of resources in Argentina. And of course, apart from that food is circulating there for the whole world, that's also a place where they take from lithium, oil, and all unrare land and all the ore that is important. They will be dominating that, and if there was a belly conflict, they will be in conditions by river waters to reach Brazil, Uruguay, to the heart. And by speaking to Attilio Moron, I asked him, how would you define, geopolitically speaking, this hatred complex? And Attilio said, this is like a stabbing in the America's heart. Because if they enter there, these Comando Sur enters through there, they could attack the heart of our continent security. This is extremely delicate. But we also found that in this area, there is trafficking, human trafficking, strong smuggling matters, which is also transiting through this area. Southern Command is also working on all this, especially in Colombia. There's a big story, it's a long story of all this. Now I'd like to continue with the next one. The other circle, the other red circle that you can see that is close to Chile, towards the Pacific Ocean, is Neuquén. There is a military base there of the Southern Command that was built that looks like a simple thing. It doesn't have a landing area. It has an hangar, but the airport is very close to that area. And we know that the Southern Command has simplified all the installations by saying that is that focusing on natural disasters and what they do to not to deploy highways. They do that close to airports because in that way they can manage things. And I think in this base which is almost finished, there is a reserve of gas and oil, the most important one in Argentina and one of the most important reserves in the world, Vaca Muerta. This is an important fact, and we don't need more explanation to this. I like to mention that in this area there are indigenous peoples, as the Mapuches, for example, who have been stigmatized as terrorists. They've been chased. Some women who are leaders from their Mapuches, indigenous peoples, they are in jail, imprisoned, because there is an interest in making all this conflict, this social conflict, the dispute for the land, these reporting on pollution, contamination, it's making all these indigenous peoples to be repressed. I had to mention this because this is completely linked to the establishment of military bases. The other red circle Apologies, I'm sick. The other red circle, southern, the one that is that circle is pointing the naval base that is being built now, or is going to be built now in Argentina. The previous government designed, or the previous ruling designed this to make it a logistic base entering the Antarctic for the Argentinian sovereignty. Yeah, they said that it was important for us to have this base. We have lots of presence in the Antarctic. But Javier Milei, when Richardson came to Argentina, they mentioned, or he mentioned, or announced that this naval base was going to be built along with the Southern Command. I must say that Manuel Adorni, the speaker person of the presidency, mentioned this, and that we're still working with this hypothesis because this is what happens to the fascist government. Their lies, their faces lies. One ways of their functioning is that they deny all what they do all the time, so no one knows what is really happening. The presence of Southern Command in Ushuaia, in the most austral territory, which is the door of the Antarctic, since 1959, the Antarctic Treaty, which was signed in the middle of the Cold War to freeze conflicts, sovereignty conflicts, and also to freeze this Cold War. So this is not taken to the wide continent. So that's what the military presence was avoided. There are military people, but not for logistics matters. Weapons are prohibited, and also scientific cooperation. And this allowed us to have this umbrella of neutrality. That's how we built neutrality in the Antarctic, which is threatened by the Southern Command base in the door of this area, Ushuaia, which is managing this channel between Southern Atlantic, which is the richest sea in the world, not only on a diverse of resources, polymetallic stones, which are on the layer of on the bed of the sea. If we would reach there, there isn't excavations are not needed. They are on the bed of the sea, and they are there for many years. And all these polymetallic nodules are housing the copper that is needed for the transition, the energetic transition, which is so, so important. One more minute, Paola. Yes, yes, of course. And the last base, NATO military base in Argentina, in the Malvin Islands. Malvin Islands, as you may know, is a territory which is in the Argentinian continental platform. They're ours. Since 1833, Great Britain occupied it, and they built a fortress, a colonial fortress. It's a remain of the colonialism. All of the world rejected this for decades. As a human community denouncing colonialism, this is like an area of colonialism because it has a big importance, a strategic importance. This is not only the door of the Antarctic to the United Kingdom, but also it is managing, it gives control of all southern resources by selling illegal licenses or permits and not allowing these people and not having the best GDP in the world. What does that imply? This is the looting of all the natural resources of the Argentinian people. I'm going to close here. And I would like to invite you to reflect. We need to work more in an articulated manner. Our movements, organizations are doing lots of efforts on discussing these topics, but they need an articulation. We need articulation on this fight. Please count on us for that. Greetings to all of you, hugs, and thank you very much for this big, big effort.
Agradecemos entonces a Paola Gallo por
Thank you,
su
Paola
intervención.
Gallo, for
Y,
your
en estos momentos vamos a tener
participation
entonces
and your
un
presentation.
pequeño
Now we're
break.
going to have a small
Seguimos
break.
entonces con Víctor.
Oh,
Ok,
no?
listo.
We're going to continue with Victor. Okay, okay,
Entonces,
okay.
vamos a seguir con la
Let's
presentación de
continue
Víctor
with
Gaute.
the presentation of Victor
Víctor
Gaute.
es vicepresidente del Instituto Cubano de Amistad con los Pueblos y defensor de la amistad, la solidaridad, la cooperación,
Victor
la
Gaute is the
paz
vice
y la
president of the Cuban
soberanía de los
Institute,
pueblos.
Friendship with the
Así
Peoples,
que,
defender of friendship,
bienvenido, Víctor. Nos va a
solidarity,
acompañar aquí con
cooperation,
su
peace, and
presentación.
sovereignty of the peoples.
Un saludo a todos los colegas y defensores de la paz que participan en este evento convocado por World Beyond War.
Greetings to all the colleagues
Muchísimas gracias
by
a sus
Beyond
organizadores
War.
y activistas por cedernos la
Thank you
posibilidad
for
de
the
participar con
colleagues
nuestra voz,
for
abordando un
participating
asunto
with
de
our
marcada
voice,
relevancia para nuestro
approaching
país,
this important
nuestra región
topic for our
latinoamericana y
countries,
caribeña,
our
para todos aquellos que
region,
aspiran
Caribbean
a un
region,
mundo de
and
paz
for all the ones
y
who are
libre de
aspiring to
injusticia.
a world
El
of peace
territorio
and
ilegalmente ocupado por los
free
Estados
of
Unidos en
injustice.
Guantánamo resulta ser una de las mayores demostraciones de la
The
arrogancia
territory
imperial
legally
con la que opera
occupied by the
Washington.
United States in
Mantiene
Guantanamo
bajo su
turns out to
ocupación
be
esa
one of the
extensión de
greatest
territorio
demonstrations
cubano
of the
en contra de la
imperial
voluntad de
arrogance
nuestro pueblo
with
y
which
Estado,
Washington
con lo
operates
cual
and
sienta un
maintains the
precedente
portion of
sumamente
territory under
peligroso
their
para
occupation.
nuestros pueblos.
Cuba
Los
against the will
orígenes de
of
esta
our people
ocupación
and
datan de
state, which sets an
1903,
extremely
cuando a
dangerous
través de la enmienda
precedent
Pla
for our
impuesta a
people.
nuestra
The
naciente
origins of
república por
this
parte de
occupation
Estados
date
Unidos,
back to
luego de un periodo de
1903
intervención
when,
militar,
through the PLA
esa ley que
amendment
impuso
imposed on our
de bases
nascent
navales
republic
estratégicas
by the
para
United
mantener su
States
dominio sobre
after a
Cuba.
period of military
El triunfo de la
intervention.
Revolución Cubana el
That
1 de
country
enero de
had strategic naval
1959
bases to maintain
hemos
its
demandado
dominance
la
over Cuba
devolución de ese
since the
territorio.
triumph of the
El
Cuban
Tratado
Revolution,
desigual
January the
asumido en
1st,
aquel contexto de
1959.
sometimiento
We have
ha sido
demanded the
denunciado
return
por
of
Cuba
that
en cada
territory.
plataforma
The
posible
unequal
y se ha
treaty
demostrado
assumed
que
in that
carece de
context of
validez jurídica.
subjection has been
La
denounced by
persistencia de
Cuba
esa
on
ocupación
every
ilegal sin
possible
ningún
platform,
tipo de
and it has
consecuencia
been
para sus
demonstrated
ejecutores
that it
no es
lacks
solo una
legal
flagrante
validity.
violación a los
The
principios de
persisting of
soberanía
this
y
illegal occupation
autodeterminación de los
without
pueblos,
any type
sino
of
que constituye
consequence
un
for its
factor de
executors is not only a
vulnerabilidad y
flagrant
tensión
violation of the
constante
principle of
para la
sovereignty
seguridad y la
and
paz
the
de nuestro país y
self-determination
la
of the
región,
peoples, but also
además de
constitutes a
servir
factor of
como centro de
vulnerability and
tortura y
constant
otras
tension
graves
for the
violaciones
security
para
and
los
peace of our
derechos
country
humanos
and the
cometidas
region.
desde su
In
prisión.
addition to serving
En
as a
no
center
pocas
for
ocasiones se han
torture and
producido
other serious
intentos
human rights violations
desestabilizadores,
committed
ataques
from
con
this
armas de fuego y
his prison,
provocaciones desde
on
la base
many
naval
occasions there have been
existente en ese territorio.
destabilizing
Cuba
attempts,
cuenta con mártires que
attacks
perdieron su
with
vida como
firearms and
resultado de alguna de esas
provocation from the
acciones.
existing naval
La base
base in
naval de
that
Guantánamo
territory.
también ha
Cuba
servido para
has
promover la
martyrs who
agenda
lost
militar
their lives
estadounidense en la
as a
región.
result
Ha
of
fungido
some
como
of
base
these
de operaciones
actions.
para
The
procesos
Guantanamo Naval
intervencionistas
Base has
en
also
países del
served to
Caribe y
promote the U.S.
Centroamérica
military
y brinde
agenda
una
in the
gran
region.
capacidad
It has
operativa
served as a
para las
base of
fuerzas militares
operations for
estadounidenses
interventionist
en el área.
processes in
Por otra
Caribbean
parte,
and
la base
Central
naval de
American countries
Guantánamo podría
and provides a
representar
great
un
operational and
potencial nodo de
capacity for
actividades
U.S.
ciberguerra
military forces
y
in the
contar con
area. On
plataformas
the
de
other
ataque en
hand,
el
the
espacio
Guantanamo
aéreo,
Naval Base could
además de
represent a
monitoreo y
potential node
recopilación
of
de información
cyber war
e inteligencia.
activity and have attack
Asimismo, la
platforms in
persistencia de
digital
la
space
prisión
in
de
addition to
Guantánamo
monitoring and
socava los
collection
principios
of
fundamentales del
intelligence
derecho internacional
information. Likewise, the persistence of the Guantanamo prison undermines the fundamental principles of international humanitarian law and has served to legitimize torture and arbitrary detentions in other parts of the world. Many of the detainees who for more than 2 decades have received it in prison have been in the limbo without conviction issued by any court, nor have they had the protection of most minimal fundamental rights, nor are there a few Cuban, American, and international organizations and institutions, including several bodies and personalities of the United Nations, who have reported the violations that occurred there. So what is it that sustains the permanence of the United States in Guantanamo? Because the same arrogance and unilateralism which it has acted for more than 200 years of this doctrine against our peoples of Latin America and the Caribbean, the same attitude with which it has tried to subjugate the Cuban people during more than 65 years of blockade and hostile actions against our people, the same attitude with which today it provides this military, they foment conflicts and foment genocide against the Palestinian people, same instinct in which today they promote regional destabilization and break the declaration of peace assumed by all the member states of the region at the CELAC summit in Havana in 2014. The petty interest of plundering the resources of our countries and subduing those projects alternatives that promote sovereign and independent and harmonious integration between our nations. But that attitude requires a reaction on the part of our people. And it's the call to action that we want to extend on behalf of our organization, the Cuban Institute of Friendship with the People's Mobilization and Unity to promote dignified peace and in defense of the sovereignty and self-determination of peoples is crucial to put a stop to this threat. And we face today that has its concrete expression in the permanence of the United States in Guantanamo. On February 23rd, we will be launching a campaign against foreign military bases and the expansion of the OTAN, of the OTAN on the occasion of the 102nd anniversary and the Guantanamo Naval Base. We will also inform you that from January 28, 2025, we will be holding the sixth conference of the balance of the world, in which we will also address the challenges we face for peace. It will also be a valuable opportunity to exchange experiences in that purpose. Once again, I thank the organization of this event, and I convey to everyone our willingness to contribute with our modest efforts to this commendable and necessary task of promoting peace worthy of a big hug. Thank you very much.
Agradecemos entonces las palabras de
Bueno, vamos a tomar asiento, vamos a dar inicio a esta segunda
We're going to
sesión.
take our seats and we're going to begin with our second session. This second session lasts around 1 hour. It is called Nonviolent Resistance to Closed Bases in Latin America, 3 case studies. Originally, or to start, we would like to express our gratitude to Conscience Canada, who has sponsored this event. And one of their organizers will share a few words with us. Linda, the floor is yours.
Thank you. And we're actually going to hear from Terry from Conscious Canada. So Terry, you should be able to unmute.
Thank you. Yes, I wanted to just say that us with Conscience Canada are very concerned that our money, we are affording murder in other countries through our taxes. And it's unconscionable. So until we were able to perform some other deed, because the government said no more, we really, really want to continue. We feel that it's very important that
Es muy importante
we don't spend our money.
Es muy importante que les hagamos saber que no pueden utilizar nuestro
But
dinero.
it is unconscionable.
No lo podemos permitir.
Our program now is White Poppy. Starting today until
Se llama el White Poppy.
Remembrance Day. We are wearing white poppies to signify.
En este momento tenemos una flor blanca.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Terry. The interpretation is the wrong channel. Interpreters, please switch to the Spanish channel. Thank you. Please go ahead, Terry.
Okay, that's all I really had to say.
Well, thank you so much, Terry, and we really appreciate Conscious Canada for sponsoring this session and your support over many years of the No War Conference. So thank you.
Yes, World Beyond War is one awesome organization. And I appreciate coming back every year at work.
Aprecio mucho poder estar acá con ustedes.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Bueno, muchísimas gracias a la organización.
Thank you very much to the organization, Conscience Canada, and thank you, Linda Tyre. A round of applause for her, please.
Bueno, de esta manera vamos a dar la bienvenida al siguiente
And now we're going to
panelista,
welcome
que
the
está
next
presentado por Zoom.
panelist,
Lastimosamente,
who will join us
no
through
pudo
Zoom.
asistir
Unfortunately, he was not
Colombia.
able to come
Él
here
es
to Colombia.
Ricardo
He is
Armando
Ricardo Armando
Patiño,
Patiño. He is Ecuadorian and Mexican. He is an economist in economic development from universities in Mexico and Spain. He was head of economic planning at the Agrarian Reform Institute at the early years of the Sandinista revolution in Nicaragua. He has been a university professor, advisor to workers and urban residents organizations, promoter of citizen initiatives to denounce illegitimate debts, and creator of a microfinance entity in his country. He is the co-author of the book Building Transforming Power. In the government of Rafael Correa, he served as Minister of Economy and Finance, Minister of Foreign Affairs, and Minister of Defense. He chaired the Commission for the Integral Audit of Ecuador's foreign debt. He actively participated in the creation
de la concesión de asilo político y protección de Julian Assange en la Embajada de en Londres. Actualmente colabora en el Instituto de Estudios Económicos y Tecnológicos de Venezuela. De esta manera, fuerte aplauso recibimos a Ricardo Patiño.
Hola, muchas gracias. Es un gusto estar con ustedes.
Hello, I'm really glad being here with you. Apologies, I could not be there, but these political circumstances put me in other role, and that's why I'm not there with you. Sorry, I'm not there. Thank you very much for the invitation. It's so good that we have these kind of initiatives, the world more than war. We don't want war in any part of the world. We need to stop these people who are violent, who are trying to look for solving not the problems of the world, but just see their interests or defending their interests, no matter what is happening to other people. I was the Councilor of Ecuador 6 years, and I learned a lot in this regard in those times. Apart from trying to understand what the importance of diplomacy in Ecuador, building integrated societies, and building peace, justice at an international level. Thank you very much. I'd like to talk about this, and it has to do with the military base that existed in Ecuador, the Manta military base, and also the new attempt of Daniel Noboa, president now,
I want to talk to you about the new military base, the new North American military base that is being constructed in Ecuador. So first, I want to share the context of the current situation in Ecuador and its relations with the military bases. First thing that I want to mention is that in the Second World War, there was, between 1941 and 1946, there was a military base in the Galapagos Island. That island hosted a U.S. military base during the Second World War. After the attacks of Pearl Harbor in 1941, there was a treaty of occupation or an agreement on the 24th of January of 1942 between Ecuador and the United States. And then it became our island, but it became a logistics center for the Americans. This included airstrips, installations for 2,400 military personnel. So the base itself was dismantled after the war, and the only thing that was left over was destruction, because they really never left. The things, the debris, the garbage, the iron garbage was left behind. And part of our and also on our territory, in our sea territory, you can still see remnants of the military base that was there. That military base served its purpose to have an important presence in the South Pacific. You know where our islands are. It's more than 1,000 kilometers from our territory. And it's very important when we talk about geopolitical strategies. After this, a lot of time passed by, and in 1999, the president of Ecuador at that time, Jamil Bawat, decided the following. He decided to do another treaty along with the United States. The idea was for them to supposedly help us be able to combat drug trafficking in the territories between Colombia and Ecuador. So there was a new agreement, and it was supposed to be only for air operations to be able to control the drug trafficking. But we also know that there were other objectives, but this is what they used to say. That was their narrative. And this was also part within the context of Plan Colombia. We know that during that time, there was a project created by North America with the support of the Colombian government to be able to establish a war plan against drugs within Colombian territory. And we came to know this as Plan Colombia. It was part of the security policies of North America, and the military base in Manta was in our territory in Ecuador. So it is it's in the west side, and it was used as a strategic point for intelligence operations and aircraft operations. That military base, or rather that agreement, was signed in the year 1999. And it is quite ironic, but Jamil Bawat is the one that signed it. His government, which was nefarious, a horrible administration that created a crisis for millions of Ecuadorians because many had to flee to Italy and or Spain. But Bawat signed it so that the government of the United States would protect him, would take care of him, so that they would not take him out of the country, so that they wouldn't take him out of the government. However, after a couple of months, different mobilizations by the people sent this president home. Yes, there were some political agreements, but he wasn't able he wasn't able to stay for long. So he signed this agreement with the North Americans so that he would be able to stay as a president for much longer, but they really didn't care. What was important for them was to be able to create a military base, to have some kind of presence, a very important presence for that matter, in the coast of Ecuador. And then when Baguat left, they said, okay, goodbye, sorry. Too bad, so sad, but we have to continue and we have to keep our base. So it was kind of a betrayal because he wasn't expecting this. In the year 2006, after the President Correa rather, he said during his campaign, he talked about his government plan and his plan for development. He said that Ecuador should not have a foreign military base. And he mentioned this during his political campaign. He said, when I take over the administration, we're going to send them home. And that's exactly what happened. There was a huge reaction. Yes, of course, the elite that have had the power for so long, who have no problem in subjugating themselves to the United States, they complained about it and they said, the military bases, the American military bases help us. They keep us safe. They give us security. And what we said, no, we have to be a sovereign state and we need to do what must be done. Yes, continue to invest in intelligence, in supplies, and work with different social organizations. That's what we said from the government, because this would help prevent violence and crime. And we also needed to develop, we recognize this, that we needed to develop some kind of progress, equity, better life conditions, and we will be able to achieve it. That's what we said. We finally did that. We actually did this. The president complied with this, and he always did. As soon as he came into power, he told the American government, he said that agreement at the base of Manta that came from 2009, we will no longer have it, so we will not renew the agreement, so please leave. And months before the agreement or the period, with the period for the military base, they left our country. But not only that, the government of Ecuador did the following. They also worked in other elements that have to do with peace. We did so through different organizations, international, regional organizations, but we also did something with the Constitution. Another thing that Rafael Correa said, he wanted a constitutional assembly, and he called the Constitutional Assembly, besides doing so many other things that he promised and that he mentioned were very important. He said in this, in Article number 5 of our Constitution, he said that we will not have American military bases, and this was approved. It passed with more than a 96% of the Ecuadorian votes. On this Article 5, of course, this is unprecedented, as well as other articles that are extremely progressive. He said that Ecuador is a territory for peace. He said in Ecuador, no foreign military bases are going to be allowed. Nobody is allowed to come in who has the objective of militarizing our areas. So not only did President Correa comply with his promise to throw out the military, the U.S. military personnel, we also established within our Constitution that that Ecuador would no longer allow any foreign military bases. As Chancellor of Ecuador, I was in office for 6 years. Part of my responsibility meant working with other southern regions and also working with CELAC which
en
is
ambas
an organization,
instituciones, como parte de su estatuto
and part of
constitutivo,
its
también se
task,
estableció
we also
no el tema de las
established
bases militares, no podríamos llegar allá.
not
Porque saben
directly
ustedes que
the subject
distintos
of military
gobiernos tienen
bases, because we
distintas
know that in Latin
posiciones
America
y
there's
teníamos que
different
buscar los niveles de
governments that
consenso.
they have different
No pudimos llegar a
positions. So we
establecer
were not
que no
able
habría bases
to all
militares extranjeras
agree
en la
that there
región,
would not
pero
be
al
any
menos en ambos
foreign
casos
military
establecimos
bases in
que
Latin
cada
America.
UNASUR
But what
como
we
CELAC
did is that
serían
with UNASUR
zonas
and
de
CELAC
paz.
would be
Eso es muy
regions of
importante
peace.
porque
This is
después
very
este
important
término,
because we
en el caso de
established this
UNASUR,
term
esto fue
that
el 30 de
UNASUR,
noviembre del
this
año
was done
2012,
in
el Consejo de
2012.
Jefes y Jefas de
The
Estado y
Council
de Gobierno
of
de UNASUR
Chiefs
emitió
of
una declaración, esto
Nations,
no se
we
puso,
had,
ahora rectifico, no se
we
puso
were
en el
very
acta constitutiva,
transparent.
pero se
We were
logró ya
very
una declaración de los
transparent, and
presidentes
we were able
que
to get the
decía que el
presidents
firme
to
propósito de
declare
los
that
Estados
the
miembros de
proposal
UNASUR
of
de
the members
preservar
of
Sudamérica
UNASUR
como una zona de
is to
paz
preserve
y
the
de impulsar la
Americas as
plena
a place
realización de
of
sus
peace.
fines por
And
medio de la
the
cooperación
objective, or the
regional. Y
way that
recuerdo
this is going
que
to
en
be
la
done is
cooperación una de las
through
cosas
the
que más se
cooperation
planteaba,
between all
sabiendo
of
que
the
el tema de las
countries
bases
of
militares
the
era por ahora
Americas.
imposible ponerlo porque había muchos países hay muchos países que tienen bases militares.
And we know
Sin
that
embargo, establecimos
tackling
un
the foreign
acuerdo
military
de
bases
que no habría
directly would have
armas de
proven
destrucción masiva en
difficult,
los
almost
territorios.
impossible, because at
Y
that
por
time we had
último,
governments that didn't agree with it.
en La
But at
Habana,
least
Cuba,
getting this peace in
el
regards to
28 y 29 de enero del
peace
2014,
within
la
the
CELAC,
Americas was very important.
como ya
Now,
Estado latinoamericano
the
inscribe en su segunda
CELAC,
cumbre,
the
declaró
CELAC in its
que
second
América Latina
summit
y el
declared that
Caribe, que ya
Latin
es más que una
America
zona,
and
nosotros
the
solamente
Caribbean,
eran los países de América del Sur,
so
en
now
este
we're
caso es América
expanding it.
Latina y
Right
el
now we're
Caribe,
talking about Latin America and the Caribbean.
como zona de paz basada en el respeto de los principios y
They
normas del derecho
declared it
internacional, incluyendo
as
los
a
propósitos
place
internacionales
and as
de
a
los que los Estados
territory
miembros son
of peace.
parte y los
And
principios y
all of the
propósitos de la
members
Carta
that
de las
constitute
Naciones
this
Unidas.
entity
Nuestro
must abide to
compromiso
this. And our commitment
actualmente
is established
permanente con la solución pacífica de
permanently
controversias
with
a fin de
a,
desterrar para siempre
a
el
peaceful
uso y la amenaza del
solution
uso de la
to
fuerza
any
de
conflict.
nuestra región.
And we will
He
not
querido
use
leer incluso los textos de
any war
declaraciones
tactics
de
or
UNASUR,
any violence
de
to come
UNASUR y
up
de
with a
CELAC en
solution.
dos
So that
importantes
was very
eventos con
important.
la
We
presencia de
said
sus
this
presidentes
during
para
a
destacar
summit,
que
and the
esta,
presidents that make up this
este
entity or
principio
that are part of this
de
entity were present.
intentar a toda costa
We said that
solucionar
what we
cualquier
wanted to
problema que
do
hubiera en nuestra
was
región
that
en
what
base al
our
diálogo,
objective
no
was
solamente en el caso del Ecuador,
to
con ese
mitigate
país,
any
sino
kind
que
of
también
conflict by
porque fue
having
autorizado para
dialogues,
hacerlo, se lo
but
hizo en
by
UNASUR
putting
y
peace
en,
first,
y
by
en la
making
CELAC.
sure that we do not turn
Ahora
to
quiero
war or any of its tactics. It was to keep us
conversar con ustedes
peaceful.
brevemente también
Today, I
sobre
want to talk to you
este tema de
about
las bases
something
militares,
else. I want to
porque
talk to you
los
about,
argumentos
or
de
rather, I
los
want
que
to
están de
continue
acuerdo con
talking
las bases
about the
militares
military bases. There
siempre
are
tienen
people
que ver
that
con
continue
que,
to
bueno,
agree
bases
with it.
militares todo se
They
parece.
say, or
Las
their
bases
excuse
militares van
for
a
having
permitir la paz.
foreign
Las
military
bases militares
bases
van
is
a
that
perseguir a los
military
delincuentes.
bases
Las bases militares
provide
van a perseguir
safety. They fight
al tráfico de
crime.
drogas.
They will
Y
stop
eso
drug
es
trafficking.
absolutamente
That's what they
falso.
say, but
Absolutamente
this is
falso.
absolutely
Ustedes
false.
seguramente en otros congresos
You
expositores
know,
estarán,
of course,
lo
you
estarán
know
señalando
this.
para otros países. Yo lo quiero establecer para mi
And
país.
there's many countries that
Se
believe
decía
so.
que
And
la base
in this case,
militar
I'm
que
also talking about
funcionaba
my own
ahí,
country. They said that
digamos, se
with
capturaba
military
en el mar,
bases or foreign
había
military
incluso
bases, it would be
submarinos
easier
artesanales que
to
salían de
seize cocaine,
determinadas costeras. Y decían ellos
especially
que por ello se
the
podía,
cocaine that was
con
leaving
ellos
our
se podía
country
capturar a la paz.
from the coast. They
Pero
said that if we
finalmente
have military
nosotros, y ahí les voy a
bases,
pedir
we would be able to
colaboración
catch
en
or we
esta
would be able to
compartir.
seize more cocaine. So I
Nosotros
want to share some
tenemos
graphics with you, or
información
rather some
estadística muy, muy
information,
clara
some
que
statistics
dice
that are very
que
transparent.
las
And you're going to be
informaciones
able
de
to
las
see
que se
here
habla
on
son una
this
información que no
slide,
tiene
and you're
sustento.
going to be
Miren
able to
ustedes,
see
acá
that
déjenme
their
ponerles
argument is
el
completely false. You'll be able to
gráfico.
see
Quiero
here.
preguntarles si lo están viendo.
I want to know
¿Sí?
if you
¿Me
can
están
see
viendo?
it. Are you able to see it?
Espero que sí.
I
No
hope
los
so.
escucho, no los
Yes,
escucho.
we
I'm
can.
not able to hear anyone, but If somebody could please let me know if you can see the slide. Okay, right here, this is the Manta base. The Manta base, rather, left in was from 99 to 2009. In the year 2010, the seizing of cocaine decreased. immediately with the work that was done by the government of Rafael Correa. We took care of our own territory. We made sure that there, you see that from 2010 to 2017 to 2018, the increase of the evolution of cocaine seizures in Ecuador. This is information, this is statistics, this is very transparent. But besides doing this, something that we also want to look at as a country is violence, it's crime rates. That is also something, a focus that we have to see, the rate of intentional homicides in Ecuador. Look at these numbers. Do you see this white circle in the middle? You'll be able to see, or you're going to be able to appreciate the time when the Manta military base was in our country. This is the rate of international homicides in Ecuador per 100,000 inhabitants. This is just so you can have an idea of the amount of violence or the rates of violence going on in our country. When they arrived, the rate of intentional homicides was 13% per 100,000 inhabitants. They were in our territory, and the rate kept growing and growing and growing. And then finally, when they left in 2009, you can see that the rate of intentional homicides came to in 2008 was in 1801 in 2008, which was the last year. So they came when the rate was 13.5, and when they left, it was actually 18.01. So really, it did not do anything. So providing security for whom? They said that they were going to support, they said that they were going to intercept, they were going to intercept drugs in our country, but that's not the case. So when we took control, when our administration started in 2007, look at these numbers. Do you see how it started to decrease? Of course, this took a lot of work, a lot of strategy. A lot was done to combat crime in our country. And if you notice, in the year 2017, which is the year that Rafael Correa left the government, it was at 5.78. From 18 or 17, it came all the way down to 5.8. So it was one of the one of the lowest rates of intentional homicide in South America, one of the lowest in the world. We became the second safest country in Latin America. So the levels in some parts of Central America, these numbers are all the way up to 50. But here, look over here, we left it at 5. So we left the government in 2017, and in 2020, it was already in 7.84. In 21, it was 13. 2022, it was 19 or 24. And in the year 2024, it is now at 47 homicides per 100,000 inhabitants. So that means that the last 3 governments, Moreno, Lasso, and Noboa, who are so submissive to the Americans, since the first day they took the administration, they started opening their doors from the South Command. They started opening the doors to all of the American commanders. They opened the doors to them because they said that they were going to receive support and resources for our country. But what they have achieved is for that rate of intentional homicides increase. We left it at 5.84 with Korea. Now it is at 47, one of the highest rates in the region. In fact, I think it's the highest in Latin America, one of the highest in Ecuador. Unfortunately, is one of the most violent countries in the world. So we're very embarrassed by those numbers, but that is the reality. I want to tell you that not only did we kick out Not only did we kick out the military base, we also gave refuge to Julian Assange. We also make sure that we kicked out the ambassador of the United States that would send false reports. We also kicked out the representative of the World Bank who had acted against the national sovereignty, opposing a credit that had been requested years before. But because of Korea's decisions, then the World Bank boycotted this credit. And so we said, okay, you need to leave. So not only did we kick out the foreign military base, we also found out, and this was done accidentally by using a helicopter, that we found out that they had a military group in their embassy. So they actually had an open, transparent military base. They also had military members in their embassy, and we actually found it by accident. It wasn't done on purpose. So we sent them home as well.
Le pedimos, por favor, que vaya concluyendo en un par de minutos.
Just a couple of minutes. Yes, of course. Finally, what happened in Ecuador, which was an important improvement of the life conditions, particularly safety in Ecuador, security in Ecuador, has been damaged by the latest governments, which are keeping in a critical situation. What we've been seeing is that the level of trafficking in our country is that this is part of narcotics. I mean, this has been increasing in an impressive manner. You can see this on the graph on the screen. So you can see the main ports of drug trafficking is Guayaquil, one of them in Ecuador, Guayaquil, my hometown. And lastly, to finish, President Noboa government, for your information, he's an American citizen. He was born in the United States. He's also Ecuadorian. But what he's trying to do, and he announced this, that he's going to call for an institutional reform to remove Article 5 of the Constitution that we can't have military bases in our country. Yeah, of course, he's devoted to the political situation of the United States. You have seen that on the news and information on the media. And what he's doing is to back up the attempt of the United States in strengthening what we call the security polygon of the United States in their war against China, Russia, South Asian Southwest. As you can see, in the Ecuador area on the sea, that's where the Galapagos Islands are located. What they want is to make up this fire land southern Pacific area between India, Japan, United States, Ecuador, with the Galapagos Islands and Australia. Ecuador has signed President Lasso, the previous one before Novoa. He had an agreement with the United States allowing United States to occupy our territory. The agreement they signed a year ago, almost a year ago, against the people of Ecuador without Ecuadorians knowing. That's serious because Ecuador, at this moment, according to the agreement that was signed by President Lasso, ratified by President Novoa, will allow U.S. military to occupy our territory with total immunity without any control, any measurement, any limitations or restrictions. They could bring 20,000 military, 10, 20 airplanes, and that's all. And they don't just want that, which is serious against our sovereignty. they are pretending to, they want to remove from our constitution this principle that means not having any military bases. So with that, Ecuadorians will become partners of the United States in this war period that they have been boosting. I hope that doesn't happen, but this could become the Third World War. If we have these military base from the United States, we will be like positioning ourselves and being potential subjects of international conflict because we have these military bases in Ecuador. Thank you very much for your attention. And in Ecuador, the ones who are patriots, the ones who love our country, who are the pacifists, the ones who believe in diplomacy and not war, we are fighting against. So this side of the Ecuadorian government doesn't happen. We need to remove all these not military bases in Ecuador, and we will continue doing it. We have elections in February, and we hope we have a success. So they go into peace, progress route, equity route, and we hope we can count on you, your collaboration, your support, your ideas, your advice. So in Ecuador, we could reroute everything towards progress, objectives. And we are here at your request to give your opinions, to share, and to provide you with our criteria on this important international objective, the world without war, a world without war, without military bases, which should be the purpose of all of us for the world future. The only territory we have to live should be a clean territory, paired, and particularly where we can live peacefully. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Thank you very much, Ricardo Patiño. We will be expecting, we will be waiting for the future elections in Ecuador because you are dealing with two agendas. So national sovereignty agenda, as you have been explaining, and also the one of giving this sovereignty, national sovereignty to foreign countries. This is something important. Juliana Sach has been protagonist by seeing all these atrocities by the army, the military of the United States and Middle East, and this is explaining why this is happening with all negative results in matters of security, drug trafficking, fight, and all these, what is happening, the right is winning this power. And this is a battle, this is a cognitive battle, this is a battle that is for the truth that is happening in cyberspace. And that's where Julian Assange has been a protagonist and a good role that we should also support. Now, I think that this is very important because, in a way, all what has been discussed in the first session and what is being discussed in the second session is making is resulting in life experience of our panelist, Mirna Hagen, was born in the colony of Puerto Rico. She was raised in the diaspora community of New York City and resides in the colony of Vieques, this military base we will be talking about, and on her experience, which for more than 6 decades was used by the US Navy and its NATO allies as a military theater for training exercises and experimentation with conventional and non-conventional weapons, including napalm, Agent Orange, and depleted uranium. The effects of devastation of land, sea, and air continues to affect Viequense's health and environment to this day. She is a cancer survivor and widow of a cancer victim, a mother of 5 and grandmother of 10. She is the founder of the Vieques Conservation Historical Trust and Vidas Viequenses Valen, a grassroots movement working for peace and justice. She serves on the steering committee of the ceasefire campaign to ban OBOD of military UXO as practiced in influence areas. As a member of the National Council of Elders, she is committed to creating a beloved community where all can thrive and enjoy their God-given rights and privileges. She holds a Master of Fine Arts degree from Catholic University of America in Washington, D.C. As an artist, activist, and environmentalist, she has traveled worldwide defending human rights and has spoken on 8 occasions at the United Nations denouncing the colonial realities of oppression on communities of color and low-income economies. Mirna Pagan, I'm so happy to have you with us today.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much.
Encantada de estar con ustedes.
I'm so happy to be here with you.
De estar con ustedes.
Honored to be here with you.
Compañeros.
I've made friends and colleagues in this path of peace.
La idea de paz.
The idea of peace
No es sola una idea.
is not only an
Es una
idea,
misión.
it's a mission.
Una misión
A mission
crear un nuevo mundo
of creating a new world
basado en
based on
compasión,
compassion,
equidad,
equity,
dignidad
and
para el
dignity
pueblo.
for the people.
Pienso que
I think
vivir en la colonia de la colonia
living in the
suena un
colony,
poco extraño,
on the colony
pero
is
sé que
a
pueden
kind of a
entender
strange, but I know that you understand that
el abuso de utilizar
the abuse of
pequeña
using
isla
a small island
poblada como una
populated
tarjeta para
as a
prácticas
card for
militares
military
con
practices
eh,
with
el apoyo
the support
de la propia nación de uno,
of our own
pues para
nation.
mí eso es ser la colonia de la
It's
colonia.
the colony,
Nada más
it's being the
bien,
colony of the colony, the
hace
worst of the world. I mean,
poco más de 2 décadas
2 decades ago,
que mi pueblo
more or
en
less,
una lucha
in my
pacífica,
town in a Pacific
en un
fight,
encuentro
in an
de David
encounter of
contra el
David
Goliat
against
más
Goliath,
poderoso del planeta,
the most powerful in the planet,
Vieques
the most
se
powerful
liberó
Goliath in the planet,
y forzó
the one that was freed
al
and
gigante
forced the giant
abandonar su campo de tiro,
abandon
donde
their
por más de
shooting
6 décadas
field where
practicaba la
for more
guerra
than 6 decades
con
was
balas
practicing war
y bombas
with
vivas.
bullets and bombs.
Les traigo un pequeño video
I have a
para
video
ubicarlos
to
en
give
la
you an
escena del
idea
crimen.
of these crimes.
Puerto Rico,
Puerto
el
Rico,
Caribe.
the
Olga,
Caribbean.
¿podemos
Can we
enseñar el video
play
ahora?
the video now?
Gracias.
Thank you.
Por su ubicación estratégica en el Caribe, cerca de Puerto Rico,
By its location
Vieques ha
close
sido un puesto
to
de
Puerto
avanzada militar
Rico,
importante durante 5
the
siglos.
strategic location in the
Los
Caribbean and
indios
near Puerto
caribes
Rico,
moran en
Vieques
la
has been an
isla y
important
luchan en
military
contra de
outpost
los
for 5
colonizadores
centuries.
españoles
The
en
Caribbean
Puerto Rico
Indians
durante
live
los
on
siglos
the island
17 y
and fight
18.
against the
Otras
Spanish
potencias
colonizers in Puerto
europeas
Rico
tratan de
during the
instalarse en
15th
Vieques.
and
Y para el
17th centuries. Other European
1845,
powers
la
tried to
corona
settle in
española edifica
Vieques,
el fortín
and by
y establece
1800,
una guarnición militar. En
45, the Spanish crown builds the 14 and establishes a military garrison in 1898. In the United States begins a war with Spain and North American forces invade Puerto Rico with a view to hegemonically dominating the region. The United States retains colonial control of the Puerto Rican islands. At the outbreak of World War II, Washington seeks to protect its interests in the Caribbean and strengthens its military presence in Puerto Rico. The United States, aware today as never before of the need to maintain naval bases in the Caribbean, recognizes the importance military of this island. Today, as in the past, the role of Puerto Rico will be to be a strong asset in the defense system of our hemisphere. It is a role that its proud people, loyal American citizens, accept and in which they glorify the rapid establishment of a naval base in Vieques deeply affected the inhabitants between 1941 and 1943. The Navy expropriated some 21,000 acres of land and segregated some plots to relocate the population. Almost all of this land belonged to two sugarcane mills, the families of some attached workers residing on these farms. They received the order to vacate the land they lived on and farm during the period of agrarian reforms in Puerto Rico. Vieques was excluded because it was a military zone. In 1947, the Second World War was already over. The second wave of expropriations took place. The Navy took over 4,300 acres in the eastern area of Vieques. There is a military camp and a practice area with this live ammunition, and this town is tired of being poisoned day after day with the bombing, and today one fell and one of our Vieques brothers died, lost his life from the fisherman. Well, don't do it for yourself, do it for your children. Do it for Vieques. Where's Vieques? Present. The lyrics of the song say, there is a small place, a place cherished by love.
Last April,
cherished.
at the Navy range on Vieques. I deeply regret the loss to the family of David Sanis and the suffering of others injured on that day.
You don't negotiate with human rights. And the only unnegotiable aspect is the human rights of the citizens in Vieques.
Governor, the question is precise. Once again, not one aerial drop bomb, not one ship-to-shore shell on Vieques. Is that your position?
Not one.
My question to you is, you're the chief law enforcement officer along with being the chief executive officer. I assume that goes with your job description. The fact that we have civil disobedience, do you encourage that civil disobedience? And why are you not arresting these individuals who are trespassing and clearly breaking the law?
It's a federal law. It's a federal government that has to act if it wants to act. Sometimes it is not wise to act. And all I'm saying is I'm giving you what I think is good advice. Don't push it.
Gente decidió empezar a ocupar la zona de tiro.
People decided to start occupying the area, the shot area that began with the Mount David, spread throughout the northern and the southern firing zone, in between eventually ending with 15 resistant camps. And in the process, we realized that we were practicing peaceful civil disobedience, and we were able to paralyze the most powerful military force in the history of humanity.
Sí amaneció bien.
Y así fue.
Only the people will save the people. We can show this. Historic archive by from Kiev.
Es un gran orgullo
I'm so
saber
proud
que nuestro pueblo,
knowing that
sin
our
un
people,
tiro de su parte,
without any
sin
shot,
nada de violencia,
no
solo
violence,
con su
only
presencia,
just by being
se
present,
entregó totalmente
devoted
a sacar a la
completely
Marina de
to
guerra.
remove the Navy.
En los 15 años
And the 15
antes
years
de que el pueblo
before
entrara a la zona
the people
de
enter this
impacto,
area of
la
impact
Marina de Guerra
zone,
de los Estados
and
Unidos
U.S. Navy
detonó 80 millones de libras de explosivos en Vieques,
explosives in Vieques,
incluyendo napalm,
including
agente naranja, uranio
orange agent,
reducido, entre
reduced
otros
uranium, among others
pesados
elements,
nocivos.
nocive elements.
Trasladaron el buque
They transported
USS Killen desde
the,
Océano Pacífico, donde se
the shipment
para probar
in the
y
Pacific
evaluar
Ocean to
los
assess
daños de
and
armas
test the damages of
hasta la
nuclear
costa de
weapons
Vieques,
up
en
to
el
the Vieques
Caribe,
border
para hundirla,
and up to the Caribbean to
amenazando
sink
la
it
vida de
by
los
threatening the
viequenses.
life of Viekans people.
Anunciaban
They announced
la venta, la
the
gran venta,
sale, the big sale,
one-stop shopping,
one-stop shopping,
todo en un lugar.
one-stop shopping.
Anunciaban en las redes,
They announced it
vendiendo a
on the media,
Vieques como el
selling
campo de
Vieques
tiros
as the
ideal
fire
para experimentar
field
y
or fire
detonar
area to
todo
experiment
tipo de armas convencionales
and shooting using all kinds of weapons, conventional,
a
non-conventional
sus aliados
weapons,
de la OTAN. Y
to all
además
and to their NATO
podían
allies.
hacerlo
And apart from that, they could do that
24/7.
24/7. They
Practicar
could
sus
practice
invasiones
their invasions,
aéreas y terrestres sin vigilancia
terrestrial and
ni
sea
supervisión
action,
gubernamental.
with no supervision, no governmental
Para los
supervision.
viequenses,
For
la tarea de
Vieques people,
sobrevivencia
the task of
fue
survival
abrumadora.
was
Se
overwhelming.
vivía una crisis de salud causada por la exposición a armas bioquímicas, resultando
They
en
used
cifras
biochemical
de
weapons,
mortandad
which meant that there were many people died, alarming numbers, in fact.
debido
And
al
this was all along Puerto Rico. These people died due to cirrhosis, cancer, diabetes, hypertension, and kidney failure, even up to today. Even after Hurricane Maria, Vieques
no tiene
does not have a hospital for its community, for its island.
no existe un centro de
There is
tratamiento.
no center for treatment for cancer.
Existe
There exists,
sala de
yes,
emergencias
an emergency ward, but that doesn't even have a pharmacy.
una sala de partos.
There is no place for giving birth.
Ya no nacen
And so in Vieques,
viequenses. Hay que ir a la
no
isla
one is
grande.
born in Vieques. One must go to the big island. If they are Puerto Rican, and we are very proud of it, but we live on an island called Vieques that has its own particularities. And it seems that nobody cares about that. So what ends up happening? There has been a diaspora, an exodus of the people, and they leave because they're looking for medical treatment. That's why they leave, for that and many reasons. In the colony of the Marines, the Marine or the Navy has been exonerated, completely exonerated of any crime by the federal agencies. They are not being held accountable. So how do we defeat this imperialism? There were thousands and thousands of protests, of actions, of manifestations, and the people took the streets, people asking, demanding justice, demanding or denouncing the abuse, the violation of human rights, and the violation against the environment, contamination, pollution of the sea, the land, the air that continued. The mercenaries that only bring war are never satisfied. The most powerful weapon for the people was to be able to invade the area. And that way, they offered their own bodies as a human shield to stop the bombardment. And that is how it was done. That is where the light was lit. Vieques, yes. Navy, no. Over 2,000 people participated in this amazing act of civil disobedience. They came from all over, defending their rights, defending their island. Hundreds of brothers and sisters that were part of the diaspora said, "We are here, we are present," civilians, artists, politicians, and among them, thousands and thousands of people that worked in journalism, that created documentaries. There were protests all around supporting Vieques. In over 150,000 people marched in San Juan. They were demanding peace for Vieques. Even the international news caught that moment where David brought down Goliath, and the cause became viral. The world celebrated along with us. It was a great achievement. But we continue to be in this struggle. We continue to confront problems, health problems, social, economic problems created for over 6 decades of militarization, of abusive control, of abusive colonial control. Our vision of an independent state, of an independent sovereign state, free of the yoke that continues to keep us under their boot, under their racist intentions, under their imperialist ideas. Even with all of that, we continue to stay united and we continue to struggle for our families, for our human race. Materialism, imperialism has taken us to the verge of extinction, where power, where greed, where war after war after war creates more war. It is forgotten. They forget that life is sacred, that we are a human race, a family that God loves, and God wants us to keep our brothers and sisters safe. And we have a unity, and that unity is called love. A love that transforms based on compassion and respect, where never again will we allow another genocide that dehumanizes us, that is brutal, that is horrendous, horrible, without mercy, as we see that is happening today in Palestine, in Gaza. It touches my heart, and it warms my heart to see the Palestinian flag here. I put on the Palestinian kafaya because every heart, by soul, I am dedicated to offer. What can I offer? As an individual, what can I offer? I can offer the same thing that you can. I can offer my heart. I can offer my prayers, my identity, my entire identity as a person that believes in peace, in justice. And I ask that all of us take a pause, take a moment of silence. Let's meditate, let's reflect. Let's send a message, a heartfelt message with our spirit. Let's send them strength, acceptance, resilience, and let's hope that they are able to have victory for the people of Palestine. We wish them victory because they are our family. We are Palestine. We are humans. So let's sing from the river to the sea. Palestine will be free. Long live Palestine. Viva, viva Palestina. Open up your heart to that. Thank you.
Que viva Palestina.
Long live Palestine. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Thank you very much, Mirna. Thank you for sharing your experience. Thank you, especially for those last words in which you talk about the Palestinian people. And I want to say that global fascism wants us to fall asleep. They want us to normalize genocide, a genocide that we are watching live on TV. They want to make it seem as though that is okay, and that what they want is that they want to win a cognitive war. They want to win through their marketing. They want to sell their truth. And what they want is to prepare us for an international war that will be much bigger. And for that reason, we cannot allow this to continue happening. Not only do we not want it to happen in Latin America, we don't want this to happen anywhere in the world. So we've talked about two different experiences of resistance, of Pacific resistance against the military bases. And now we want to open the floor to Edgar Jai from Providencias Island. He studied there in Santa Catalina. He studied law and philosophy in the city of Cali, and he has been a fisherman for 23 years. He is the president of the Federation of Fishermen, representative of the Fishermen of Providencia, and delegate to the Table of Fishermen of Providencia. Edgar is an activist for the rights of the land and its resources of the population of Providencia. It's very important that whenever we think about Colombia, the Constitutional Court, and this is echoing what Ricardo Patiño was talking about in regards to Article 5, Constitutional Court declared that
una normatividad expedida por el gobierno Uribe con el gobierno norteamericano.
That it decided that we would not continue a law that was done by Uribe along with the United States to bring in 7 military bases. So that was considered unconstitutional by the Constitutional Court. Either way, there's still a loophole There are agreements of cooperation, and there's already too many military bases here. There's cooperation with 62 military bases. I want to give the word or to the floor to Edward J. Edward J., the floor is yours.
Muy buenas tardes.
Good afternoon,
Ya
everyone,
tardes, noches.
or rather, good
¿Me
evening.
escuchan bien?
Can you all hear me?
Perfectamente.
Yes, we are able to hear you.
Bueno,
¿Puedes poner el teléfono en horizontal, por favor, para verte
Do you
mejor?
want to change the perfect? We're able to see you better like that. Thank you.
eh, pues muy emotivas las intervenciones.
I want to say that I have enjoyed the presentations by all the compañeros and compañeras.
Latitudes.
Thank you for bringing in and talking about the different problems, and also highlighting all of the resistance movements against militarization. It has been very interesting for me to be able to understand. This is a subject that is structurally ideologic, because what we're looking at is a fascism all around the world. We need to understand the resistance against militarization. It's an act of rebelliousness that is being created to find an alternative so that humanity will be able to live, to improve, and to hope. There is an experience, or rather, there is an action that we have supported. And the struggle that is taking place right now, it was already mentioned before, and it is a struggle against the intentions of the creation of a military base in Gorgona. This has already been mentioned before, and one of the things that I wanted to talk about is one of the most recent things is that those types of resistance movements, I want to say that what happened in Gorgona is something that we've also done in Providencia, in Santa Catalina, in San Andres, because it was annexed by the Colombian state in 1822. And this is a perfect example of colonialism, a neocolonialism that need to be analyzed within the context of militarization. Militarization creates the overtaking of different countries, not only overpowering you physically, but culturally imposing political, economic, social models, and all sorts of paradigms that alter the natural journey, if I'm allowed to use that, the natural journey of development for the peoples. It violates their right to free determination. The fishermen of the island of Providencia, along with the fishermen of Santa Catalina, don't have 19 square kilometers of territory, or don't have more than that, rather. And if we include San Andres, we have a total of 50 square kilometers. And so it is a territory that is quite limited, that has been overtaken multiple times, and has a surface of 330 square kilometers, of which we lost 75 with the ruling of the of the International Court of Justice in 2012, the fishermen of Providencia, trying to defend our territories, our ethnic territories, and to stop the continuation of the breaking and overpowering our own territories, a strategy used in our sister island. Because what they wanted was to displace the population. When I talk about Providencia, I can go back since the 1990s. There is an intention to build a military base. That military base was rejected during a citizen-led movement, and this was during the early 1990s, and then it was revived in 2014. This project was once again tabled. This project was planned to be constructed or created in an area that was under protection in the Boden Basin. And this is a river that is quite symbolic. It is found in our municipality. It is very important in archipelago because it has connection to a very important bay. One of the first places where the first ships came that gave origin to our ethnicity. That is where all of the fusions began, not only of the indigenous communities, Afro-descendants, Asians, and Europeans, that gave place to our ethnicity. It is a very important place. It is an archaeological place, perhaps one of the most important archaeological sites of our country. And in that protected land, right beside there is an installation of fishermen cooperation. It's called Cooperative Fish and Farm, had a project, and this is where they wanted to create the military base, and this was rejected during the citizenship consultation that started in 2014. Fine, with the hurricane Iota in 2020, it destroyed our territory. It was a Category 5 hurricane, so it destroyed everything on the 16th of November of 2020. It destroyed our territory and it generated destruction in 98% of the households. It destroyed our supplies, our fishing supplies, and our hopes were shut because of all of this. The armed forces took advantage of this moment, and so they retabled their intention to create and build this military base, taking advantage of the fact that we were so vulnerable at that time after the hurricane, when most of us ended up homeless on the streets and all of our resources were destroyed. The hospital infrastructure, the public service, communication installations or infrastructure, all of our economy, our dreams were destroyed. And so they took advantage of that. And then they started putting up some tents on the property already mentioned. And their intention of this was to create and build the military base. And in a matter of 2 days and 2 nights, they created a pier that went across there was a pier built, a pier that prior to the hurricane was a pier used by the fishermen. And so what we decided was to organize ourselves and start an encampment right beside their camping tent, by the military camping tent. And what was our determination? We said we were not going to move from there until we achieved our objective, for them to leave, for them to abort the project. And furthermore, we were not going to allow them to continue with any type of activity, no activity for building, for moving, any type of activity that would mean some kind of negative effect on the community. So we, as a group, we decided to organize. What we wanted to do was to make sure that they left the place. And along with our legal team, we started also the claims. And we were so fortunately that they left, and we were able to win the case in the Superior Tribunal. And there was and the Constitutional Court also spoke up for us. My intention is not to speak for long, but I do want to tell you that it causes, or I am quite worried that even though there is a block of constitutionality, when there is a legal framework, a legal international framework that is supposed to protect the rights of ethnic communities and protects the free determination of the peoples, that is within the terrain of what are the ideals.
Edgar, you're muted. Can't hear you.
Lo siento. Apologies, I'm not able to hear. Apologies. I'm not able to hear. Apologies, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I just had to ask the people here that to be quiet, but now I am back. So what I was saying before, so our association is constantly, permanently mobilizing here. We are mobilizing with people from the community. There are no guarantees. Can you imagine the power that an army like the United States has, the strength combined? It's like a strength. Can you imagine that strength along with the strength that NATO brings? And all of the different internal structures of countries of the countries that work for the American military, they all serve their purpose. So what is my question here? How can the people and the communities, how can they defend their own interests when the world geopolitics is governed by fascism, or by the fascist doctrines, by the militarization doctrine that exclude people, that look to have a power, that will not allow any of the countries to look for alternative ways of development? And that is why the Fishermen Federation, iFish Association, what we wanted to do is believe, or take a step forward rather. Not only do we want to resist, not only do we want to mobilize when necessary, obviously done in a very peaceful way. What we want is the construction, the building of an alternative, of popular power, of collective action that would allow the people to find strength among each other, to be able to create something new, something different. Because if we don't, humanity will continue to suffer. It will continue to develop technology at a disproportionate rate, which are not coherent and that will not allow vulnerable communities to actually develop. And it will not allow us to have a more participatory role with different social organizations. So that is why it's very important. It is key that organizations, that grassroots movements, the communities, the organized communities need to focus towards a solution focused on through a different culture, through an outlook that looks for unity and create alternatives. If we don't, let me tell you that the landscape as we see now is not not only will it be negative and hopeless, it will be disastrous for the existence of the human race. If we don't look for an alternative model, we will never be able to survive. So we want to scream, we want to yell. We will rebel against this. We will rebel against the status quo, and we will continue to create alternatives that are viable, that are realistic, that will allow the peoples of the world, especially those that have been excluded for so long, for them to have actual options and continue to create societies that actually that are equitable. And we need to overcome fascism, and we see this all over. Look at this case of the United States. 1 minute, please, and we need to start concluding.
And this is a country which their election mechanisms are not democratic. They're not democratic because the president is elected by an electorate. It's cool, and this is, if this happens in other areas, could be a factor, the reason to instigate an invasion. That's all I wanted to share with you. And from here, from the Western Caribbean, from the Providencia Island, with the aim of unifying our nation, building all our perspectives as a nation, and trying to find ourselves as people from the diaspora of our reality, the diaspora of our peoples. We're here present with all you in the efforts and in this fight. Thank you very much for letting me participate. Thank you.
Muchísimas gracias, compañero.
Thank you, Edgar Jai from Providencia, for this example of Pacific resistance that happened in Providencia in 2020. And with this, we are finishing the second session, which leaves us lots of learnings. One of them is that the foundations of peace and global stability could not be based on the current capitalist economic system. Let's remember that after the Second World, countries created globalization, big powers, to establish the world based on economic interests from the different powers and their rivals and other powers. However, in the past years, we've seen how countries have been nationalizing all their economies because they are preparing for international conflagration. That's why these are the foundations of the peace, of stability. World stability could not be based on an economic system. they should be based on awareness, reason, humanism, biocentrism, as we have seen, it's the human being and the environment are the most impacted ones by
Muy
war.
importante, nos quedan estas lecciones de
These
resistencia
learnings are
pacífica
very
frente a la
important.
guerra
Pacific
que se ha dado en
resistance
Puerto
against
Rico, que
wars
se
that
dio
happened
en
in Puerto
Ecuador y que
Rico,
también
in
se está dando
Ecuador,
aquí
and that
en
is also
Colombia,
happening
en
here in
donde la
Colombia,
comandante Richardson
where the
viene
Commander Richardson
a menudo ya perdimos la
often
cuenta, yo creo, de cuántas veces está
we
viniendo
lost
porque
track.
está muy
She's
pendiente
been coming
de todas
here
las
so many
instalaciones
times,
militares en las cuales hay personal
in
norteamericano
all these
aquí en Colombia.
military
Finalmente,
facilities
no hay que
here in
permanecer
Colombia.
indolentes y no
We
hay que
should not be
permanecer
indolent,
pacíficos, digámoslo de
but
alguna manera,
and not
frente a la
pacific
guerra,
in a
frente
way
al
against
genocidio contra el pueblo
war,
palestino. Tenemos que
genocide
permanecer
towards
muy
the Palestine
activos en
people.
redes
We need
sociales,
to
muy
be active
activos
in
en las
social
calles, en las
media,
movilizaciones, en
on the
cualquier
streets,
espacio que
mobilizations,
tengamos
in any space
nosotros
we
para
have
justamente defender
for
a un pueblo que en este momento está siendo
defending,
víctima
advocate
de un
for
genocidio frente a los
our
ojos
friends,
de
they are
todo el
victims of
mundo.
genocide
Entonces hay que permanecer
before the eyes of
activos, de lo
all
contrario
of the
seremos
world.
cómplices
We need to
también
be active
de
because
ese
otherwise we will
genocidio.
be accomplices
Muchísimas
of this
gracias a un
genocide.
mundo más
Thank you
allá
very
de la
much for
guerra,
the
a Gabriel
World
Aguirre,
Beyond
también a
War,
Conciencia Canadá,
Gabriel
a Linda
Aguirre,
Tyler, a
Conciencia
Ricardo
Canada,
Patiño,
Canada
Edgar
Awareness,
Pay,
Ricardo
a Mirna
Patiño, Edgar
Pagan y a
Pay,
todos los aquí
Mirna
presentes
Pagan,
por
and
su
all
participación.
the participants here.